Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
The Storm Pirates by Drinor. What if Luffy never ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi? Instead, he devours the Arashi Arashi no Mi, the Storm fruit, gaining the power of tempests, lightning, and wind itself. With the power of the storm in his hands, Monkey D. Luffy will turn the world upside down and forge a new legend as the captain of the Storm Pirates. Big shout out to the warlords of this channel: Throat Punch, Rodarius Jones, Native Warrior, Claude Lefrace, Neo-Esker 23, Derek Dowdy, Zazu Syaz, Abdul Rauf Ali, N3WT, What If Lord, Black Money Young Leon, Garrick Russell, Case Clark, KSGPL4YZ, and Brian McKenzie. You know who you are. Want to stand among the warlords? Join the channel membership and show your support. Adios.
Arriving in the city was the second sign of good luck since they arrived in Alabasta. After leaving Yuba, the old man had been quick to give them several gallons of water despite Luffy protesting, saying that he himself needed them more than they did. Luffy explained their plan to the old man, saying how soon Alabasta would be free of crocodile, and the rain would return once again in the desert. "You're a kind man, Monkey D. Luffy. I can see why the princess is flattered with you." The old man spoke with pride as if he was speaking about his own blood and flesh. His words caused Vivi to blush in embarrassment, the old man laughing at her antics. Luffy rubbed the back of his head, not sure what to say to that. Zoro grinned deviously when he saw Sanji clenching his teeth in anger, biting the cigarette he had between his teeth in half. Life is cruel, he thought, stomping on the cigarette that fell in the sand. "Thank you for your help. Next time we see each other will be raining," Luffy promised, shaking the head of the man who wiped away a tear. Now, the crew finally arrived at the city. Looking at it, Nami had to admit that it was good looking, her eyes founding the large pyramid-looking building in the center with a crocodile head at the top. It didn't take a genius to figure out that crocodile was there. The only thing missing was a big sign with large red words, "A crocodile here." "I take it crocodile is there," Nami said, unamused. If it weren't that they needed to deal with a warlord and this place was probably filled with crocodiles people, she wouldn't mind going to the casino and earn some money. Just the mere thought caused her eyes to turn to berry signs. "Greedy witch," Zoro murmured under his breath, knowing what his teammate was thinking just by looking at her. "There are 100 people around the casino," Nijiko suddenly said, pointing at several places around the casino. The others except Luffy couldn't tell what she was talking about but trusted her guts. "I didn't know she had observation haki of this level," Luffy, though impressed. Perhaps Nijiko was stronger than he had initially thought. He knew she was strong, but perhaps her specialty was observation haki. After Alabasta, I should test her skills, he thought with an amused look on his face. Soon the pirate crew was walking through the city, and many citizens paused when they noticed that the group wasn't from Alabasta. One look was enough to tell, especially Chopper was drawing a lot of attention, causing him to hide behind Zoro's leg. The latter gave anyone a glare who dared to look at Chopper in a wrong way. "So, what's our plan?" Usopp questioned. In his hand was a revolver. He was filling it with ammunition. But Nijiko noticed this ammo was a new type. Usually, the bullets that Usopp usually used had an ash-like color. This one looked darker, with a red circle at the top. The revolver itself had a few strange words carved on it. Around the handle was the word "Will" in white color, and at the barrel was the word "Deadeye" in bold red color. During their time traveling through the desert, they hadn't really talked about their plan or how they would proceed with this. Personally, Usopp thought that being sneaky would be a better approach rather than walking up to the casino like idiots and shouting, "Crocodile, I will beat your ass," at the top of their lungs. And it seems the heavens themselves made his nightmare real when his captain simply shrugged his shoulder with a smile that really caused him to sweat more than the sun above them. "That's easy. I will walk up the casino and tell him to come out so I can beat his ass," Luffy simply replied without giving much thought. Usopp slapped him in the head with a deadpan look on his face. "What the hell, we should try a different approach. It couldn't be so easy," Usopp told him with shark teeth. "Actually, Luffy's right. All we need to do is kill Crocodile, and once we do that, his men won't be able to do anything, Vivi said, easing his worries a bit, but the Longnose still thought this was careless. Despite that, we should try to be sneaky about this. We have no idea how strong he is. He's a warlord. We are currently marching towards a big question mark with no information besides that he uses a sand fruit, Usopp said, his voice shaking a bit. It was well known that Crocodile used a sand logia devil fruit. Hell, his wanted poster says as much. I'm not saying we shouldn't fight, but I just think we are being too careless, Usopp added a bit too quickly, knowing his words could be interpreted differently. Don't worry, Usopp, Luffy said, putting a hand on his shoulder, reassuring him. I will defeat Crocodile, he promised with a firm tone that left no place for discussions. Usopp nodded, his eyes showing that he fully believed his captain. One thing he didn't like was that this one day could bite them in the ass. Even if Luffy defeated Crocodile, what if one day they get in a conflict against someone way above their league, and lost just because they didn't make a good plan first? Captain, I would advise killing him inside the casino. His devil fruit is Suna no mi. Inside the sand will be more limited than outside, where he's literally surrounded by a sea of sand, Nezuko suggested. Her captain nodded in understanding before they continued their way towards the casino without saying another word. Nami wondered if she would be able to defeat any of the strong opponents. She knew she could easily take care of a bunch of idiots with guns, but she hoped to fight someone with actual abilities and strengths, but mainly to test her new ability. Smoker and Tashigi they had stopped at a bar drinking lemonade. His subordinate was writing something in her notebook. He didn't pay much attention to her, his mind full of what they had to find out. Due to an insider, they were informed that Crocodile was responsible for what was happening in Alabasta, the lack of rain, and the civil war that was like an erupting volcano just waiting for the moment to explode. Smoker didn't know who the informer was, but he wondered how much he or she could be trusted. They had no proof outside of simple words. Even if they did, Smoker knew Crocodile was a bloody warlord and therefore protected by the world government outside his touch. Despite serving the Marines for a long time, he still couldn't fathom how they thought hiring pirates was a good idea. Treasons, double cross, leaked information. This whole plan could go wrong in so many ways. Pirates were the people they fought and imprisoned, and someone thought using pirates who couldn't be trusted was a good idea. Smoker grunted in annoyance, wanting Garp to be here. He would be able to do things that he couldn't do yet. He was still just a captain without much strength to back himself up. He escaped his thoughts when he heard a voice behind him. Captain, he turned around to face a soldier, and he saluted respectfully before him. What is it, soldier? Smoker questioned. His firm tone caused the soldier to shake slightly. We have received information that Captain Asuka will arrive soon, the man reported, still saluting. Smoker told him to leave, and only then he allowed himself to go. Hearing the information, Tashigi brightened up like a candle. Asuka is coming here, Captain, she said smiling. I heard that. I was here, and she's Captain Asuka now. You will address her as such, Smoker quickly corrected, causing his subordinate to pout in annoyance. He knew they were good friends. But rules were rules, is a way to show respect. Smoker believed that in front of other people, one who is in charge should be respected and addressed with respect even by someone they knew their whole life. What will we do about Crocodile? Tashigi questioned, changing the subject. Smoker inhaled his cigarette with a frustrated look on his face. Don't know, can't do anything right now. We have no proof other than words that are worth nothing, he explained. His subordinate nodded in agreement. Just as he was about to ask how her sword-fi door of the restaurant opened, revealing a woman wearing a captain's coat, red hair that reached her shoulders, a pair of glasses over her head, a sword strapped in her waist, with a word carved on the blade. Wearing brown gloves and a loose tie around her neck, her marine shirt had a few buttons unbuttoned, revealing a bit of her cleavage. Captain Smoker, her voice firm and strong as she marched towards her fellow captain. Captain Asuka, good to meet you, Smoker greeted as he stood up, extending his hand for her to shake. Shaking it, she turned her attention to Tashigi, who saluted respectfully. Good to meet you, Captain, she said, earning a slap on the shoulder by the said captain before being grabbed. Captain, did you suddenly forget about me? She questioned before wiping away fake tears from her face. This caused Tashigi to smile before hugging her. not caring that her captain was looking at them while shaking his head. Rolling his eyes, he decided to ask why she was sent here. He certainly hadn't asked for reinforcements. Vice Admiral Garp sent me here. We have reasons to believe that Crocodile's warlord position has been compromised, she informed them, her tone going from soft to ice cold in a second. Asuka didn't really want to reveal that her main reason for coming here was a certain fool with an ugly hat and his desire to put himself in problems. Well, that's worrying. What should we do? Toshigi questioned. Before they could respond to her, Smoker's eyes caught a straw hat walking through the streets towards the casino. Later, look, Smoker stopped them before pointing at the straw hat and walking away. What should we do? Toshigi questioned, immediately grabbing the sword that had been resting against the chair she had been sitting on. Chase him, Toshigi. Gather all the troops we have available. He's not escaping this time, Smoker ordered, quickly slamming more than enough coin on the table to pay for their drinks. Asuka followed Smoker, quite excited to meet Monkey D. Luffy. She had heard quite a lot from Ace. When he started talking about his brothers, he couldn't shut up no matter what. From his words, Luffy was the purest of souls. She wondered if that was all drunk talk, but now was an excellent opportunity to see him herself. Luffy and his crew soon noticed that Marines were following them. Straw Hat, he turned around to face the good old Smokey, and behind him, a woman he didn't recognize. Seeing the situation was escalating, the people around the area started running away in fear of getting caught in the crossfire, some staying around, curious to see how it would go down. What are you doing here, Straw Hat? Smokey demanded answers. Luffy quickly noticed that the girl beside him was a bigger problem than he was. He briefly wondered who she was before turning his attention back to Smokey. I'm here to kick Crocodile's ass, Smokey. Can we please play this game a little later? Luffy said with annoyance. Smoker did a double take. Why would a bunch of pirates want to fight a warlord? Forget it. That doesn't matter. Don't be ridiculous. I'm taking you in, he shouted, his arms turning smoke, as Toshigi returned with a large group of Marines. Guys, we are drawing too much attention here, Usopp shouted, pointing at the many Baroque Works officers and soldiers that were walking towards them with guns ready to shoot. Guys, remember our mission, don't allow anyone to stop you, Luffy shouted, electricity dancing around his fingertips, disappearing from view. He kicked Smoker in the chest, sending him flying to a nearby building. The debris and the sound were a good distraction for the rest of his crew to start running away. Nami grabbed Vivi's wrist, her other arm turning to armor as they escaped. Zoro pulled out his sword, and many Marines aimed their guns and shot, but their bullets were deflected by the swordsman who smirked, cutting through them like flies. All of them fell to the ground with wounds, but not fatal injuries. Fools, Sanji murmured, inhaling his cigarette before he started kicking through Marines. Every kick broke several bones like they were made of straw. Soon Baroque Works started attacking him, which made no difference to Sanji, who this time knew they were Crocodile's men, his kicks crushing their skulls. Usopp had pulled out his guns, shooting at Baroque Works that were following him, and Chopper, who had turned into his human form, punching at Marines that approached them. Nami was running along with Vivi and Nijiko when 30 Baroque Works soldiers came out, blocking their way. That's the princess, kill her, one of them shouted, pointing at Vivi, who paled. All of them shot simultaneously. They grinned only to be shocked when they saw a burning shield surrounding the pirates. The shield moved away, revealing that it was a set of large wings created by Nami. Her eyes had turned crimson red. Her wings looked made of small rhombus forming a giant set of wings. Red flames dancing around her wings. Her arms had turned to gold, and the heat coming out from her made even Vivi sweat. Go away, she shouted before her wings sent a wave of wind-shaped blades that hit everything around her, cutting through metal, concrete, stone, and flesh. Every man around her fell down, with huge gashes around their bodies, bleeding out. Some had lost their limbs, some were already spared from the pain, and some were screaming in pain. Let's go, Nami prompted, grabbing Vivi's hand but not before turning it back to normal. The princess was silent at the gore caused by her dear friend. She understood that they were enemies, but hearing them scream as they ran away, caused her to feel a pang on her heart, and regret. Forgive me, she thought, not saying anything to Nami. Just as they were about to turn into a corner that led to the casino, Nijiko suddenly grabbed both her sister and Vivi in time to dodge a huge blade wind that cut through the sand and stone like a knife through butter. What was that? Nami exclaimed, shocked to see the attack had cut a dune in half far away from the city. Luffy, once he punched Smokey, he started running towards the casino, completely ignoring the other captain. Halfway through the road, he stopped dead on track, seeing the red-haired captain holding an unsheathed blade over her shoulder, her face stoic and emotionless. Monkey D. Luffy, Ace has talked a lot about you. Asuka started with a slight smirk, catching the pirate captain off guard, who definitely didn't expect a marine captain to say Ace had talked to her. Wait, you know Ace? Luffy questioned, rubbing his ears, thinking that he hadn't heard her right. Yes, I know your brother quite well. Despite being a pirate, he's a good man with a terrible fashion sense. Asuka replied with a genuine smile, paying extra emphasis to the word, well, something that the captain noticed. Luffy laughed when he heard her talk about Ace's fashion. You're right about that. His clothes are terrible, he agreed, still laughing, before his face turned serious, knowing this one was stronger than Smoker. Asuka then grabbed her blade with her bare hand. Luffy feared she wanted to cut her hand. When she started sliding her hand from the bottom to the tip, the pirate captain saw the whole blade suddenly engulfed in flames. The blade itself had changed color, now red like blood as flames danced around the edge, her hand suddenly engulfed in armament hockey. Dodge this, Asuka said firmly, raising her hand. Before Luffy could say anything, she brought her sword down, sending a deadly wind blade. Luffy ducked just in time to dodge it, the blade cutting through several trees before cutting half of a dune far away in the distance. Luffy left out a whistle. He had to admit that his brother had decided to love the wrong girl. You're quite a good captain. Now I need to kick Crocodile's ass, he stated with a grin, not really having the time to stop and chit-chat, but still wary. The girl simply stepped away, allowing Luffy to run past her. As he passed, Luffy saw her putting something. He didn't try to stop her, instead, he ran towards the casino. He figured he could check it out later. Zoro, he was fighting marine after marine. He saw the impressive attack that cut down a large dune. Sadly, he had been at the wrong side of the attack to get a better look. Whoever did that is quite good, he thought, wondering who could have done that. Before he could ponder more on it, a voice he really didn't want to hear anytime soon. I found you, Roronoa. Zoro, turning around, he was faced with the replica of Kuina, her sword drawn. She was glaring at him. Fuck my luck, he cursed under his breath. From all the idiots he could have faced, he faced the one person he was trying to avoid. What do you want? I thought our departure last time went smoothly. Smoothly? I'm here to challenge you, Roronoa. Zoro, and you don't get to run away. She spoke with resolve, showing that she wasn't afraid of him. Zoro would have called her stupid if it wasn't for the fact that he had challenged the world's strongest swordsman not too long ago. Knowing someone like her wouldn't leave him alone. Very well, he agreed, unsheathing one of his swords, which caused Tashigi to grunt, releasing that he wasn't taking her seriously. I have trained since the day you defeated me. Use all your 3 swords, she demanded angrily, pointing her sword at him. She hated that he wasn't taking her seriously yet. She was strong, not weak, never weak, she thought. No, Zoro replied quickly without batting an eye. She wanted to protest when he spoke again. If you want me to fight with 3 swords, he spoke, pointing his sword at Tashigi. Force me, he added. She clenched her teeth but quickly took a deep breath, reminding herself that getting angry was a fatal mistake. Swallowing a huge breath, she took her stance before rushing towards Zoro. Sword style. Waterfall dance. For what felt like minutes or even hours, she felt nothing when Tashigi suddenly felt a sharp pain on her shoulder, her blood bubbling on the surface before leaking out like rain, her body falling on the sand, her face not feeling the heat. She winced, but didn't scream. She didn't want to, not in front of him. Opening her mouth to speak, she felt another sharp pain. Ignoring it, she asked, "How? You're not ready yet. Your feet are not fast when you can move as swiftly as me. Find me, and we will fight again," Zoro responded, looking at her but not showing contempt. Tashigi recognized that look. Respect, she thought with a smile, despite the pain she felt. Suddenly Zoro kneeled and grabbed her body slowly, holding her. She felt her cheeks heating up. If she wasn't wounded, she would slap him on the face. What are you doing? She questioned, trying her hardest to hide the blush. Zoro rolled his eyes in annoyance. Just bringing you to your comrades, once that done. I will walk away, my captain needs me, Zoro responded. Hearing his words, she allowed herself to relax in his arms. She knew she wouldn't hear the end of it. She was now finding it quite comfortable. Luffy, crocodile, come out, he shouted the moment he burst through the main door, the door falling down from his kick. The people around the casino stopped whatever they were doing and were looking at him, confused, surprised, and shocked. One tried to talk with Luffy, but he pushed past him, shoving him to the side. Crocodile, come out, coward, he shouted louder. This time, his arm engulfed in electricity. Perhaps a few claps of thunder close to the casino would wake him. If not, he would bring the whole place down. Straw Hat Luffy, a soft voice called him. He turned to his left towards a corridor, the Sunday or Saturday woman walking up to him with a smile that he knew was fake. Miss Saturday, good to meet you again. Luffy greeted her with a broad smile that somehow warmed her heart. Actually, as Miss Sunday, she corrected with a real genuine smile. Luffy found that he quite liked her real smile. It made her look prettier. Where is Crocodile? Follow me, she said, gesturing for him to follow behind as she swayed her hips. His eyes quickly noticed her ass was bigger than Nami's or Nejico's ass. Walking only two of them, Luffy decided to speak and not stay in total silence. You should smile more often, and I mean your real smile. You're much prettier like that, he said smiling. His hands crossed behind his head as he walked. This gave her a pause for a second. Perhaps I will, but I'm quite curious. Why are you helping the princess? I checked, and you have no ties with the royal family of Alabasta? She questioned, quite curious, but her voice was as emotionless as a stone. Luffy frowned that she had looked at him. She's my friend, and no other reason is needed, he replied with absolute sincerity, which made Miss Sunday pause, turning to face him. No other reason, she said, her voice showing that she didn't believe him. She could tell he wasn't lying to her, but she wanted to make a double check. No other reason, Luffy confirmed. Miss Sunday asked nothing else, her mind going to Crocodile. She held no loyalty for the man whatever. He was someone who was trying to gain power through other means, to become what the majority of the pirates wanted. She wanted what she had wanted for her entire life, the truth. She wanted to uncover the truth about the Void Century. She knew the king knew about the location of the poneglyph. If Pirate Luffy won, she would use the distraction that the Revolutionary Army would cause to perhaps even force the king to tell her where the poneglyph was. Monkey D. Luffy, if you survive, I might need your protection for a while, and to test the truth of your words, to see if you are unique or just like everyone else, she thought. Leading the pirate captain to a large double door, the handle made of gold. Here, she simply said before walking away, making sure to sway her hips as she walked away, knowing the captain had checked her ass. Luffy's turned to the door, taking a deep breath before kicking open the door, smashing it to pieces. The smoke cleared out of the way. A large desk in the room behind it was a man smoking a large cigarette. A beautiful door, such a shame, the man spoke indifferently, not really caring about the rookie who just smashed his door into pieces. Luffy simply ignored his words and asked only one question. Are you Crocodile, the warlord? One and ONL. His voice interrupted as Luffy punched his face, sending him flying through the wall and crashing against a house. Wiping away the blood from his lips, he glared at the rookie pirate who was standing at the hole he created in the wall. He's fast. A thunderstorm approached as multi-thunders echoed throughout the whole desert like a horn of war. Luffy's hands turned black, as did his legs. Lightning struck him from the sky, dancing around his fingers, hair, and chest. This is the end, Crocodile. Crocodile clenched his teeth in anger, his cigarette all but forgotten. The brat had moved much faster than he had initially thought a rookie should be able to, and that not counting the armament hockey covering his hands and legs, the electricity dancing around his fingertips. So this brat is stronger than I thought, Crocodile said in his mind before his hands and legs turned to sand. Jumping in the air, he launched himself at the Straw Hat, his hook aimed at his chest. One stab and the brat would die. Just as the hook was about to touch his chest, mainly the part around his heart, the brat disappeared in a flash of lightning. His hook arm was suddenly slammed down by his leg, his left hand grabbing his coat. Crocodile didn't even understand what was happening before a fist slammed against his face, causing him to be blown away, hitting a nearby building. The debris flew everywhere, as the entire second floor crashed down in the first floor. Crocodile used his hand to support himself. His face was burning in pain, his lower lip and nose bleeding, as he spits out a broken tooth from his mouth. His eyes looked in front of him, where the entrance of the building had been a second ago. Now stood the rookie glaring furiously at him, his arms and legs still black, covered in armament hockey. "So you know how to use hockey? Do you think that will help you win?" Crocodile questioned with a sneer. As his hook turned from golden to black, so did his other hand, but Luffy noticed that the sand around his body was also turning black. He can cover his sand in armament hockey? He thought, surprised. That would be a problem for his ultimate strategy. "You can use it as well," Luffy said, sounding surprised. He had expected it, but this warlord didn't look that strong to him. "I'm a warlord, Brad. I'm one of the 7 people who hold the balance in this world: warlords, yunkos, and marines. Do you really think I would reach this rank without knowing hockey?" Crocodile said with a huff at the end. Grabbing the cigarette in his mouth with 2 fingers, he threw it in the sand. "I have to be honest, Brad, when I heard about you, I thought you would be a minor annoyance at best, but seeing you know, I understand why Mr. 3 lost against you," Crocodile said with an annoyed look, half of his face turning to sand, a constant smirk on his face as he spoke. Luffy ignored the man. His attention was on the sand around them. The level of the sand was rising with each minute, the sand now reaching to his knees. "Why do you care about this country? I thought warlords like you were supposed to capture pirates and work for the world government," Luffy questioned, pulling his leg out of the sand, rising like a river on a rainy day. While personally, he thought the warlord system made no sense whatsoever, he still was quite surprised that Crocodile would do something like this without a backup plan in case the world government got wind of this and sent an admiral or 2 to silence him. Crocodile noticed the tone of mockery he used when he mentioned the world government, causing him to raise an eyebrow, interested that this brat had perhaps something against them other than the reason he was a pirate. "Brats like you don't understand our world, but tell me, do you know what a poneglyph is?" Crocodile questioned, using the power of his devil fruit to be spread across the land, to have as much sand as possible in control. Through his legs and observation hockey, he could feel sand 100 meters deep. Luffy narrowed his eyes at the mention of that word. He didn't know much, only what Shanks had told him about them. According to him, the poneglyph held the deepest secrets of this world, hidden behind a language that few people knew how to read, according to him. "What's this cube thing?" Luffy questioned, holding an open book in his hands. Shanks had told him to study, much to his annoyance. Still, when the red-haired pirate told him he couldn't become a pirate king if he didn't study and know stuff, that automatically shut Luffy up, who started reading despite finding it annoying. Often he would get distracted by literally everything, but once he reached the cubes, his curiosity got the better of him. "That Luffy is," Shanks spoke, grabbing the book from his hand and changing the page. It showed a picture of the same cube but much closer. Now Luffy could see strange letters on it that he couldn't understand. Shanks pointed his index finger at the picture as he showed it to Luffy. "This is a poneglyph, Luffy. They hold the secrets of this world. If you want to reach One Piece one day, you must search the whole world to find all the poneglyph. Only through them will you know the truth," Shanks spoke. Luffy noticed his grip around the page got tighter as the page began ripping slightly at the bottom. "The truth? Yes, only those from Ohara can read what is written in them, them and people who can hear the voice of all things," Shanks explained with an unusually serious voice. "A poneglyph? What does Alabasta have to do with them?" Luffy questioned. As clouds started gathering around the sky, the sun no longer shining on the land, the light across the land dimming with each passing second, eventual darkness, as if it was night, the people of the city were pointing at the dark clouds. Some had fallen on their knees, praying that it would rain. "Please rain, please, Kashigami, make it rain," the person prayed. Even children were kneeling, hoping that it would start raining. Not noticing the wind getting faster, the flags on top of the poles were blown away by the wind. Wind vanes around houses were rotating with an inside speed, some unable to handle the speed, flying away in the sky. Several claps of thunder stroked the sand across the land, turning it into a glass-like material. The Straw Hat crew were running away, trying to reach the capital as soon as possible. With the help of Pell, Vivi, Nami and Zoro were able to fly, standing on top of him, trying to reach the palace as soon as possible, to to stop the bloodshed before it could start. Sanji and the others were running towards the place, and it helped that the entire land was surrounded in darkness because of the vast clouds that had suddenly appeared, blocking the sun. Suddenly a massive thunder stroked the land where the others knew Luffy was. "Will Luffy be alright?" Vivi questioned, concerned. Despite being several miles away from the place, they still could see the massive thunderbolt striking the land and the sand forming a giant sea made of sand, moving around as if it was alive. "He will be. He's our captain. He will survive this, and now we must do what he ordered us to do." Zoro spoke with convention in his voice, looking at the land going away with each passing second. Vivi appreciated his words but couldn't help but get worried for Luffy. Perhaps they should have stayed together and defeated the warlord together. Just as those thoughts were growing in her head, she noticed that Nami didn't look concerned in the slightest, which surprised the princess, knowing she was the captain's girlfriend. "Nami, aren't you worried?" Vivi questioned. The navigator closed her eyes for a moment as if thinking how to answer. Opening her eyes, they had turned red. "Our captain won't let us down. It was him who defeated Arlong, someone I considered the most powerful creature in the world. Crocodile might be a warlord, but he has yet to meet a more stubborn man than our captain." Nami spoke with resolve, her eyes showing that she didn't doubt her words. Their captain would undoubtedly come out victorious like always. Zoro nodded in agreement, happy that Nami wasn't saying something to make Luffy look bad. "Princess, I don't know this Luffy, but he's the captain for a reason. If he gave an order, then you should follow it. Right now, you must complete your duty and not worry about him." Pell spoke as he flew as fast as he could. Thankfully, they had passed the area where the wind was much faster and harsher. Vivi nodded with a smile. She knew she needed to have more trust in Luffy. Zhu looked away. An enormous thunder hit the land where Luffy was, causing the entire desert to brighten up, as if a second sun had appeared suddenly, before disappearing just as soon as it appeared. Vivi gasped at the thunder, but before she could voice it out, the sound of the thunder reached, causing their ears to hurt. The entire landscape was booming with sound, covering her ears. She could barely hear anything, despite being miles away. The sound felt as if the thunder was right in their ears. 10 minutes earlier, a poneglyph. What does Alabasta have to do with them? Luffy questioned with narrowed eyes, ignoring the sand rising. A chuckle escaped Crocodile's mouth, his eyes glittering for a moment. "There's one underneath the palace. It will show me the location of Pluton, one of the 3 ancient weapons. With that in my hands, the entire ocean will be within the palm of my hand. One piece will be mine." Crocodile spoke with a nasty smirk that Luffy didn't like. Hearing those words caused his breathing to get heavier and more lightning around his body. "All these people, Vivi and her people have suffered for so long because you are after a weapon." Luffy spoke furious, his eyes glaring murderously at Crocodile. The warlord didn't look fazed by his words, his own narrowing at Luffy. "You're a brat, you don't understand how brutal this world is. Let me tell you something, in this world, only those with power can stand at the top. Do you think those in the world government had stood at the top for hundreds of years because they were righteous? No, because they have the power to squash those that dare to stand. History has shown us time and time again that only strength is what matters. I might have made people here suffer, but you have no idea how many more suffer because of the world government. And I don't want to be just another nail they will squash. If I were to die, I want to die like a pirate." Crocodile spoke with venom before sending a massive sand tornado towards Luffy, who simply looked at it with indifference. The sand engulfed the brat, but Crocodile knew this couldn't be so easy. Suddenly the brat showed up above him, and his whole body had lighting around him. Suddenly a thunder stroked down. Crocodile saw it coming because of his observation haki, but he didn't budge, as the lighting was on the brat's hand, holding it on his hand. Luffy grinned before he murmured a word, "Hikari." The lightning on his palm got more significant and brighter as he threw it at Crocodile, who immediately ran away in sand form. The lightning struck the ground where he had been a second ago, turning the sand into glass. Crocodile screamed in pain when the lightning struck the sand despite being 100 meters away. "How? I was too far." His thoughts interrupted as he barely dodged another lightning attack from Luffy, who was flying in the air, chasing after him. He kept throwing lightning after lightning, each one narrowly missing the warlord but still electrocuting the famous pirate who screamed in pain each time the attack landed on the sand. His observation haki is better than I thought, Luffy thought, impressed since dodging lightning wasn't something anyone could do. Suddenly Crocodile stopped running, a giant ball of sand flowing from the desert before him. As thousands of projectiles launched towards Luffy in a shape of small knives made of sand. The captain simply allowed them passing. His body was logia, they couldn't harm. He suddenly backed away. Luffy clenched his teeth as one stroked his stomach, piercing it, the pain burning on his belly like a hot knife, blood pouring out. How? Luffy thought as he looked at the sand composed together to become solid ground with a sharp end, looking like a knife, but instead of looking like sand, it had a dark color covering the surface. He can use armament haki on sand so far away from his body? He thought. Alarmed as he flew away, Crocodile grinned, knowing he had landed a strike. Die, he screamed as thousands of knives covered in armament haki launched toward Luffy, who used his speed and observation haki to dodge each of them. Getting tired of this, Luffy decided to execute his other plan. He caused rain to start falling from the sky. Looking up, Crocodile saw Luffy holding a hand on his bleeding stomach. The whole land was enjoying the feeling of rain after so long, except Crocodile, who narrowed his eyes dangerously at the brat. Knowing he couldn't allow his actual body to get wet, he quickly made a move. "Do you think some water will defeat me?" he shouted in anger as he took control of the sand deep beneath the surface that wasn't touched by water, covering it in armament haki to cover himself and the land around him from the rain. Luffy watched as the rain wasn't doing anything to the sand covered in haki. The sand that came from beneath the ground was acting like a cover for Crocodile. I see, he's protecting himself, but he can't allow his actual body to get touched by water, he thought, smirking. Suddenly, his hands started sparking, massive lightning coming out from his hands, shower lightning. Hundreds of bolts started landing on the warlord. Crocodile watched as electricity hit everywhere around him, quickly covering himself. The cover was getting destroyed by the lightning striking it, turning it to glass, but not just the cover, Crocodile couldn't see it, but the sand around him was turning to glass. Getting fed up with his attacks, Crocodile used all his will, his entire strength, to gain control over as much sand as he could. Moving as much as he possibly could, causing a whole mountain of sand to go up. Luffy watched as the sand, the size 300 meters tall and 100 meters wide, was floating in the air, shaped like a mountain, with a very pointy end. What is he? His thoughts interrupted as the entire sand turned dark like iron from armament haki. How the hell can he cover so much sand in haki? Luffy thought, surprised. He had expected the warlord to be strong, but perhaps he had underestimated him. Suddenly a voice echoed inside the mountain of sand. Straw Hat Luffy, behold my most powerful attack. You should be honored to see it. I had used this attack only 2 other times before, Crocodile taunted him from inside. Luffy couldn't see the man but knew he was smirking. The captain didn't show fear in his eyes. Instead, he raised his arm, and several lightning bolts struck his body. The blood around his body started moving much faster, his muscles and brain working more quickly, and his skin started turning red. Luffy knew this would hurt like a bitch, but he knew he needed it to win this fight. Gear 2nd. Lightning Man, Iron Sand, the Abyss. Both shouted as the sand started moving toward Luffy at a much faster speed, trying to catch Luffy, who started dodging and running away from each attack. Now his body moving faster than ever before. His body was barely visible to someone without observation haki. Crocodile kept launching swords made of sand towards Luffy, who kept dodging every attack, while his right arm was turning to red lightning. Moving and dodging, Luffy quickly hid behind some houses that were destroyed rapidly by the swords. Using the smoke as cover, the pirate jumped high in the air, much higher than Crocodile, who sent the entire sand he had left towards Luffy, whose arm was utterly red lightning right now. The entire sky echoed as Luffy launched himself towards Crocodile, more and more power engulfing his body. Several swords scratched his body as he dodged. Still, he ignored the pain as Crocodile quickly turned all the sand left into a giant shield in front of his body. Luffy raised his right arm as hundreds of bolts struck his arm, turning into an enormous bolt of lightning the size of the entire city, the temperature burning the skin around his arm. Luffy stopped himself from crying out in pain as he threw his final attack. Lightning Strike. Dragon Breath, throwing with all his might. The bolt struck square in the center of the shield, cutting through it like butter, Pearsonist, finally hitting the land, causing hundreds of meters of sand to suddenly turn to pure glass. Crocodile's sand lost form immediately and started falling like rain, as his body fell on the ground, with a massive size hole where his heart should be, his body smoking from the temperature. Luffy breathed in relief as he fell to the ground, motionless, his right arm badly burned. His eyes felt heavy, but he knew the job was done. Now, all left was for his crew to do the rest. Perhaps now he could rest a bit. Closing his eyes, he felt Miss Saturday walking towards him from behind, but he didn't move an inch, knowing she wasn't there to harm him. "You defeated Crocodile. I have to be honest, I'm genuinely surprised," she spoke, looking at the body of Crocodile far away from them. Silence fell over them as the rain started falling from the sky, and people near the town that had run away when the fight started were cheering and crying. "What is this mummy?" one little boy asked, looking at the water falling. He had seen water before but never falling from the sky. "This is rain, my dear," the mother said lovingly to her 2-year toddler, who chuckled before he started playing in the rain with the other children. Robin smiled in amusement. Her blue eyes turned to the captain, who was lying on the ground breathing heavily, his right arm badly burned and needed treatment. "Don't worry, Captain. I will take care of you," she spoke softly. "Zoro." The closer they got to the palace, the higher the tension was rising. They were traveling on ducks. The princess was up there with the bird warrior, and the swordsman forgot his name and didn't bother remembering it. It was quite easy and relaxing to fly up there, but Vivi and the bird warrior told them they could use the ducks to arrive at the castle while she and the bird warrior went there a bit faster in hopes of stopping the war. Nijiko went on with them, saying that the princess needed protection in case any of the rebellions had a happy trigger finger. Despite the princess saying she would stop the war without bloodshed, Nijiko simply ignored her and went on with them. Zoro grumbled when he heard the princess's words. He had nothing against it, but she was way too naive to think that this whole rebellion could be stopped without bloodshed. Zoro had no doubts that some in the rebellion were actual maniacs who would use the rebellion as a justification to kill people. It has happened before and will always happen. Not to mention that Crocodile's man could be everywhere. Since their captain ordered them to leave, they hadn't heard of him yet. The enormous thunder that brightened up the whole landscape like a second sun was the last thing they heard of him. All of them were wearing hoodies, so the enemy couldn't tell that none of them was the princess. Chopper and Usopp would occasionally ask if Luffy was alright. Well, mainly Chopper. He was still like a kid and was getting worried about Luffy. "Don't underestimate our captain, Chopper. He might be a fool sometimes, but he's as tough as nails. We should show that we believe in him by doing what he orders us and not worry about him." Surprisingly, it was Sanji who said that to Chopper before lighting up another cigarette, inhaling it, and releasing the smoke from the corner of his mouth. Nami and Zoro nodded in agreement without saying anything. As they were getting closer, Zoro noticed the bird warrior almost reaching the palace. Despite being miles away from the huge crowd of rebellion's warriors, the sound of their voices was reaching them. The sound of swearing, curses, and screams. "Do you think the fighting has already started?" Chopper questioned with concern. Zoro was about to reply when Usopp shouted, pointing his index finger. "There are powerful people hiding in front of us," he said with fear in his voice. "I can't tell how many, but there are at least 4 of them," Usopp added, his hands shaking slightly as he gripped his revolvers. "Very well, everyone scatter. They must be Crocodile's top officers. Your objective is to reach the palace," Zoro shouted. The others nodded, except Sanji, who grumbled in annoyance. "I'm not taking orders from you, shithead," he shouted before riding away. Zoro rolled his eyes before riding forward, not changing the direction of his duck. His hand moved to the hilt of his sword, and as soon as he reached the houses, an attack came from the corner aimed from behind. He jumped just in time, dodging his attack, and turning around, his eyes met with his enemy's eyes. The first thing he noticed was his arms were like blades. Landing on the sand, he removed his hoodie. "Devil fruit has been some time since I fought one," Zoro said with a smirk as he pulled out his second and third sword. The man barely reacted, not showing much interest in his eyes. "You're not the princess. You must be one of the pirates she has been hanging with since Whiskey Peak. Where is she?" the man demanded, pointing his arm blade towards Zoro threateningly. The swordsman chuckled in amusement. "You got that one right. That's the only thing you will get right today. I'm Roronoa Zoro, the swordsman of Straw Hat Pirates. Zoro replied as he took his stance. His eyes noticed his arms and legs were made of metal. This will be an excellent opportunity to test my abilities, Zoro thought, seeing an opportunity for himself. The man in front of Zoro has tanned skin with long, thin limbs and fingers. He was tall and very muscular, and his head was shaven. His most striking feature was probably the black unibrow right over his round eyes. He has big lips and the symbol Yi tattooed on his torso. He was wearing an oriental-looking attire consisting of a sleeveless dark coat with golden edges and white motifs on the front over very loose beige pants held up by a white sash around the waist, with some light brown fur sprouting from it. His pants were tucked inside some bandages wrapped around his calves and, in part, around his shoes. Is pointless. I have the Supa no mi. I'm a bladed human, and your swords can never cut me, the man declared. His arms and legs had turned to blades, and a glimmer passed through the edge. A chuckle escaped Zoro, his eyes looking at his opponent like a hunter would look at its prey. He remembered another person telling him he would lose his promise to his captain never to lose again. His promise to his friend to become the best swordsman. If I lose to you here, then I'm not fit to become the best swordsman and not fit to be in the crew of the future Pirate King. Now, are we going to fight, or are we going to discuss the weather? Zoro spoke with conviction, his eyes burning like a fire, taking a step forward. I'm Mr. One. Let's see which of our blades is stronger, he spoke with a hint of respect before rushing toward his enemy. Zoro rushed towards him, his feet causing sand to spread around the air, and blades clashed blade. He blocked and attacked several attacks, forcing himself to use his observation and armament haki to the maximum. No swordsman has ever cut me before. I'm a swordsman's worst nightmare, Mr. One declared as he swung at Zoro, who blocked his attack before launching his own at his chest. The sword did nothing to him as he expected, throwing more and more attacks. He was getting ground, forcing Zoro to fall back, as he kept blocking. Mr. One smiled in satisfaction, seeing his opponent slowly back into a corner but was too busy to notice Zoro's hidden smirk on his lips. The wall touched his back. The green-haired narrowed his eyes as Mr. One raised both of his arms, ready to cut him down. Cockiness is a weakness, Zoro murmured to him, blocking his attack with his swords, his arm blade mere inches away from his eyes. Using his strength, he pushed his arms away, leaving him completely open to Zoro, before directing his attack at him in full force. Fool, you can't see you. His voice stopped when a gash spread across his chest. Mr. One quickly stopped his two other swords just in time from cutting through him like a knife through butter. He quickly jumped away, gaining distance, and breathing heavily, his eyes quickly checked his wound, and a growl escaped his mouth, standing up on his legs, ignoring the pain in his chest. It seems I can cut you after all, Zoro said with satisfaction, taking a stance, ready to use his more advanced moves. This won't happen again, swordsman, but congratulations, you're the first to cut through me, Mr. One said with narrowed eyes, his arms crossed in front of his chest defensively. The cut wasn't deep enough, from his waist to the center of his chest. Kiri, Zoro spoke, launching an attack towards his chest. Mr. One quickly dodged by quickly jumping to his right, the attack cutting through the building behind him like nothing. Zoro heard the sound of the building crushing down. As his opponent disappeared from his view, Zoro's eyes widened in alarm as he quickly tried to see where he went. His observation haki alerted him from behind. What? He thought, quickly turning around to stop his right arm from piercing him, but his left arm cut his stomach, blood leaking from his wound, dripping in the sand. Almost, Zoro breathed. His left sword had changed the trajectory of his second attack just in time to stop him from piercing his lungs. Zoro breathed heavily as they were both locked in a situation where neither could move. You will not cut me again, Mr. One declared as he added all his strength to his arms, causing Zoro to back down, tea of his skin and muscles, but the green-haired wasn't going to back down easily. Sadly for you. I promised I would never lose again, Zoro said through his clenched teeth, as he used all of his strength against his opponent, his feet firmly standing on the ground, not allowing himself to back down, forcing his opponent to back away a little, taking the small gap. Zoro jumped away. Still, Mr. One started swinging his arms violently, sending small wind blades that cut through the walls but were not big enough to destroy the entire building. Zoro dodged several of them before running around Mr. 1. He kept using the building as cover from the deadly attacks, the attacks almost reaching him, when they suddenly stopped. What? Before he could process it, Mr. 1 jumped from the top of a building towards him, his arms crossed in front of his chest, ready to use his most powerful move. Zoro focused all his will into his blades. His armament haki would be able to cut him again. His senses almost made it as if it was in slow motion. He could see it. Zoro knew when to attack, jumping toward him with all his strength behind his attack. Blade mirror, Jiri. The sound of blades clashing with blades echoed throughout the area. Both swordsmen fell roughly to the ground, sending dirt around. A gentle breeze flew through the area, sand flowing through the air. None of them moved for a moment. Lying on his back, the green-haired swordsman ignored the pain. He rolled around slowly, standing up on his legs, using his sword as support. A slash from his collarbone to the lower part of the chest, breathing heavily as he sheathed two of his blades. A rough cough made him turn towards his opponent, who was lying on his stomach, almost motionless. His chest now had two new huge slashes from his waist to his collarbone. His blood leaked into the sand, turning it red. Zoro said nothing as he walked up to him, holding his blade just above his chest. "Any last words?" He coughed blood again, but with a bloody smirk. "The best swordsman, you said? At least I fell fighting the best one," he said weakly, as Zoro stabbed his chest, piercing his heart, coming out from his chest. "Thank you. I got stronger because of you," Zoro said respectfully before sheathing his third sword and wiping away the blood from his blade. His attention turned to the castle, knowing what he needed to do next. "Sanji. So, you must be Mr. Prince, huh? You're one of the Straw Hats I haven't met yet?" "Well, you're correct. My name is Sanji, and I'm the chef who's going to kick your ballet ass out of Vivi's kingdom now." The two rush at each other and begin kicking the crap out of each other, kick after kick. Their kicks caused sound waves to spread when they exchanged blows. "You're a fighter, huh? I'm sorry, I must have mistaken you for some crappy ballet dancer," Sanji said with a smirk. Bon looked horrified and angry. "Crappy? How dare you? I'll have you know my fighting is like art. I'm a master in the Okama Kenpo techniques," he exclaimed, looking offended. Sanji sneered. "Okama? You're going to make me laugh? Well, let's go then, cook boy, drunken swan soiree," Bon exclaimed with tears of passion in his eyes. Bon sticks his tongue out as Sanji tries to kick him, and then rushes the Straw Hat cook with a flurry of kicks and punches. "Ha ha 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 ha." Bon dances around and acts in a manner as if he's mocking Sanji. Sanji growls in frustration like he wants to strangle the ballet dancer. "Take this then, Tendrin Tenderizer." Sanji delivers a swift kick to Bon's middle. "Ouch! That really hurt you, little bastard. How dare you?" Bon shouted with anger. "I've got more where that came from," Sanji said, smirking. "Well, if you want to continue this, how about I finish this off with style?" Mr. 2 covers his eyes and then begins transforming. "About 90% of what I saw was your own stupid face. I'll help you out then, quasi-cracker." Sanji spins around and kicks him. "Now stop playing dress up, you cross-dressing freak. Don't you have a heart? I'm an artist, you jerk," Bon exclaimed while holding his chest with his hand. "I'll kick you again, then, Mouton Mallet." Sanji prepares a flurry of kicks, but Bon turns into Usopp. Now that he had turned into one of his friends, Bon was confident he would win. "Try and hit me." Sanji looked offended before kicking him straight in the face, sending him crashing to a nearby building. "How could you do that? You just attacked your friend with a long nose. Well then, I guess you don't value your friends whatsoever. You really are a moron. Do you think you can fool me by turning into Usopp and the others? Even if you do look like them, you are still that dumb cross-dresser that you are on the inside. People are determined by their souls," Sanji stated with a serious face. Bon was pretty hurt by this that tears began to come from his eyes. "Their soul? I see now," he said before he decided to transform into someone else. "I was foolish enough to fool you like this. Even if I turned into one of them, it wouldn't work. Because my appearances don't seem ma." Bon soon noticed that Sanji was freaking out. The cook had hardy eyes and a bloody nose. "Nami, Nami, Nami." He can't be this easy to read, he said more to himself before turning to Nijiko. Nijiko. Bon laughed, now understanding what his weakness was. He's really easy to read. Bon then turns into Nami. Nami, 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 he's incredibly easy to read. Oh, you are such a fool. Pardon my oh come my way, knuckle. Bon punches Sanji in the face, sending him roughly to the sand, his nose bleeding. He stood up, glaring daggers at him. Bastard, how dare you use the lady's appearances to trick me? Bon laughed, now looking normal. Try me then, cook boy, come on, come at me. Why you? Bon then turns into Nijiko. Oh no, he said in a singing voice. Oh, how cute, swan chop. Bon chops Sanji in the eyes. I can't do it, I can't hit a lady, any lady, not even them. They're just too beautiful. Turning to Nami. Oh, his desert air is so hot, I'm going to rip my clothes off. Bon begins to expose Nami's breasts in full view. Oh, I'll help you, Sanji said with blood coming out of their nose and heart eyes. Mascara boomerang. Bon kicks Sanji several times, sending him crashing into a building. Ow! That does it. Sanji rushes at Bon, who is prepared to transform. You have something on your left cheek. I do? Bon turns back into himself. Got ya. Sanji kicks Bon into a wall. Ouch, nice job. You managed to figure me out. I better step up my game, then, here I go. Bon removes the swans from his back and sticks them on his feet. How do you like this then? I call it prima ballerina. Bring it on, cross-dresser. Sanji and Bon rush at each other and begin kicking each other multiple times over and over and over again, until one last kick leaves them standing there. Sanji kneels over. But Bon feels like he's about to be sent flying, and that's what happens. Bon flies straight through several walls. He is down for good. Eat it, cross-dresser. No one takes the girls' appearances and insults them in front of me. Now then, where's the palace? Sanji runs off. Usopp at the southeast gate. Usopp and Chopper were now confronting Mr. Fore and his companion Ms. Merry Christmas as well as their extremely odd-looking dog. Chopper was in his human form. Usopp had his slingshot out, and he had taken off his sniper goggles. They both had quite serious expressions on their faces. Okay, Chopper, let's not do anything insane. We still don't know what strange skills these two have, not to mention that freaky-looking dog. Usopp stated as he glanced at the two agents. Right, Usopp and Chopper couldn't see what was happening because of the dust created by Ms. Merry Christmas's tunneling into the earth as she grinned and sprang into the air. Usopp pointed his slingshot toward the dust cloud and exclaimed, "What the heck is she doing?" I don't exactly want to wait and find out. Usopp nodded in agreement, Andubber on his slingshot back and roared. Special attack. Exploding star, shot a pellet into the dust. The little projectile detonated when it hit the ground near the two agents after entering the cloud of dust. Usopp and Chopper didn't care that the explosion created additional dust. Usopp and Chopper saw that the two Baroque Works agents were nowhere to be seen after the smoke eventually cleared. They had been replaced by a sizable hole in the earth, but Chopper and Usopp didn't give the hole much consideration because they believed Usopp's exploding star had caused it. Did we get them? Chopper said. I don't see them anywhere, so maybe we did get. Move. Usopp leapt to the right and Chopper to the left as they both rapidly exited the area where they were standing. From where they had been standing, a hole had appeared in the earth. Chopper was forced to jump away once more as another hole appeared from under him, as he landed around 10 feet away from the hole. What the heck is going on? Chopper shouted while in the air. They're underground, Usopp screamed. A hole in the sand appeared as soon as his feet left the ground. He heard laughter coming through the holes when he landed. Ms. Merry Christmas giggled and stuck her head through one of the gaps. I'm Ms. Merry Christmas, and I ate the mole fruit. Therefore, I'm a mole human. She waved her hand and looked off into the distance toward the southeast gate, and now, all me to introduce to our fourth batter. Usopp and Chopper turned to see Mr. Fore slowly emerging from the earth through a hole while brandishing a massive baseball bat bearing the number 4. Mr. Fore. And our star pitcher. Lasso. As the strange-looking dog emerged from a hole behind Usopp. The dog is a pitcher? Usopp said, his expression filled with confusion. Usopp and Chopper's eyes widened in amazement as the strange-looking dog sneezed and shot a baseball at them with startling speed. The baseball missed Usopp as he dove to the ground in a hurry. The ball moved in the direction of Mr. Fore, who swung the enormous bat at it with precise time and force, sending the ball flying back in the direction of Usopp, who was still lying on the ground. Usopp knew he couldn't dodge in time, but Chopper saw the ball's direction. He instantly started running in the direction of Usopp in an effort to get there before the ball could, but he was not moving quickly enough. The ball exploded but not close enough. Usopp and Chopper gently sprang up from the ground, Usopp with some minor bumps and burn marks on his body. "Man, you two really are fortunate," Ms. Merry Christmas said. "But let's see how lucky you will be this time," she exclaimed before telling Lasso to fire another. The dog sneezed once again, launching a baseball at Usopp as he ran in the direction of Chopper. Mr. Fore moved from the batter's position behind Usopp and Chopper into the hole he had previously been in and then emerged from it. Usopp and Chopper both leapt out of the way, making careful to land on their feet because they knew Mr. Fore would retaliate by hitting one of them. The enormous hitter promptly smacked the ball back to them, as they had anticipated. The only distinction was that he was shooting at Chopper this time. "Look out!" Usopp screamed at Chopper as he deftly dove high into the air to avoid the ball. "What should we do?" Chopper asked, who was keeping an eye on the adversary. Usopp took a moment to consider his response before coming up with a plan. "I've got an idea," Usopp stated, attracting Chopper's attention. "We are going to convert their strongest advantage into their doom." Usopp dug inside his pouch. "Listen, all I need you to do is keep the big guy busy." Before racing in the direction of Mr. Fore with his hand up and prepared to hit him, Chopper nodded. As soon as Chopper swung his hand, Mr. Fore dove into the hole to avoid his strike. The sounds of Ms. Merry Christmas's laughter resonated through all the holes as Chopper's fist missed. "You guys are a bunch of morons. You're nothing compared to us," she swiftly said. Usopp answered, pulling back his slingshot, "No, you're the moron." He shot 5 tiny pellets into 5 distinct holes in the earth. The pellets split open upon impact as they passed through the openings and released gas into the tunnels below. "Chopper, run!" Usopp screamed as the reindeer bolted from the vicinity. Usopp fired 5 additional pellets into 5 other holes, releasing the same gas. Then Usopp started to flee away. He added 1 more pellet to his slingshot while sprinting and pointed it toward one of the gas-emitting holes. He threw the pellet into the hole, which exploded upon impact. The gas he had earlier loaded the underground tunnels with was ignited when the pellet detonated, generating a tremendous explosion that engulfed the Baroque Works agents and everything within a 50-foot radius. Usopp was launched into the air by the explosion, but Chopper intervened and snatched him before the two of them fell to the ground. There was so much dust in the region that no one could see anything. From where they were lying on the ground, Chopper and Usopp peered up to check if they had captured the agents, but they were unable to see anything. The 2 Baroque Works operatives and their dog were standing in the middle of a large crater at least 20 meters wide when they finally saw it after waiting a short while for the dust to settle. Before they began laughing and rejoicing, Usopp and Chopper exchanged glances while wearing broad smiles on their faces. "We are the best," Nami quickly after scattering. She jumped from her duck when she dodged an attack. Landing on the sand, her eyes quickly found her opponent. In front of her stood a woman who could use advice on how to wear better clothes. "You are?" Nami questioned with a raised eyebrow. "Miss Doublefinger, you must be one of the little pirates that accompanied the princess," she spoke with a sultry tone. She was a young, slim woman of above-average height with curly dark blue hair, thick lips, dark green eyes, pale skin, and a curvy figure. Her outfit mainly consists of a short, long-sleeved jacket with beige-colored fur brims, a bikini top describing an unusual spiderweb-like pattern across her abdominal area, low riding pants, and platform sandals. "Well, this little pirate will turn you to ash," Nami promised, her arms turning to gold, her eyes turning red like blood. She wanted to know just how powerful she was, and this woman would be a good target practice. Nami smirked deviously. For 10 years, she had felt weak, she had felt hopeless, she had felt anger. Everything, she had felt all of that. That stopped the day her captain and lover entered her life. He showed her how powerful one could be and just how little of a fish Arlong truly was. After his defeat, she had promised herself to do everything in her power to help Luffy to become the Pirate King and to achieve her own dream of drawing the map of the world. Despite feeling it, she ignored her fear. After joining him and becoming stronger every day, she felt her fears slowly being overpowered by strength and bravery. She wanted to be strong herself, and the devil fruit she possessed could help her to become a nakama worthy of the future Pirate King. After Arlong's defeat, she fought and won small battles, but all of them were against small fries that could barely be considered challenges, but now in front of her stood the first major challenge. Someone who works with Crocodile, a warlord. Nami didn't know how strong she was, knew if she lost here, then perhaps she was never worthy of this crew. "You are?" Nami questioned with a raised eyebrow. "Miss Doublefinger, you must be one of the little pirates that accompanied the princess," she spoke with a sultry tone. She was a young, slim woman of above-average height with curly dark blue hair, thick lips, dark green eyes, pale skin, and a curvy figure. Her outfit mainly consists of a short, long-sleeved jacket with beige-colored fur brims, a bikini top describing an unusual spiderweb-like pattern across her abdominal area, low-riding pants, and platform sandals. "Well, this little pirate will turn you to ash," Nami promised, her arms turning to gold, her eyes turning red like blood. She wanted to know just how powerful she was, and this woman would be a good challenge. "Oh really?" The woman spoke with a low sultry voice. Thanks to her observation haki, Nami saw the attack coming and jumped up just in time as a spike formed from the woman's arm, striking the ground she had been standing on a second ago. Where did that spike come from? She thought, quickly analyzing her opponent in front of her. "How do you like my fruit, darling?" she questioned with the same sultry tone, her tongue licking her lips. Nami observed the woman in front of her, her hands moving through her long hair as it suddenly turned to spikes. "I ate the toge no mi. I can grow spikes from every part of my body," she explained as her fingernails turned to giant fingernails, each 1/2 a meter long, as sharp as a sword. "Now, let me slice you up, little girl," she spoke before rushing towards Nami with much greater speed than the navigator thought she could. Ducking down just as she attacked, her nails cutting the house's concrete behind Nami, who quickly used her opportunity to fight back. Her arms turned to wings made of gold, and simply spreading out her wings caused a huge wind wave to blow Miss Doublefinger away, crashing against a house. Her back ached, but she ignored it. Quickly standing up, Nami jumped towards her, sending flames towards her. Doublefinger quickly used a house as cover hoping that the fire couldn't burn the concrete, but she was wrong. The flames burned through the concrete, making the whole house crumble like glass, causing dirt and smoke to spread everywhere. Miss Doublefinger quickly hid behind the smoke. Sadly, Nami couldn't do the same since her shining wings were a dead giveaway. Nami quickly understood she had lost her. As she thought of running away from the smoke, her observation haki went crazy. She didn't even bother looking behind before jumping to her right, the blade cutting her stomach. Nami winced in pain. The navigator ignored the pain. Her hand covering the wound quickly turned red from the blood. In front of her stood Miss Doublefinger smirking in triumph. "First blood. I can't wait to carve you open like a turkey," Miss Doublefinger exclaimed, licking her rose lips. Nami narrowed her eyes. Miss Doublefinger rushed towards Namu, trying to stab her with her long nails, her blade almost touching her shoulder when instead of hitting skin, the shoulder had turned gold before Doublefinger could think of what to do next. Nami punched her right in the stomach, her golden hand causing her great pain and burning the skin. Nami quickly followed her attack with another punch before, using the tip of her wings, which were like shards, to stab her, but Miss Doublefinger quickly used her devil fruit to make spike come out from every body part, making her look like a ball of spikes, effectively stopping the wing. Nami's eyes widened. She was within the distance, quickly jumping away but receiving minor wounds before landing on the sand. A laughter was heard from Doublefinger, whose spikes were 5 meters long each and had destroyed the wall of a nearby building. "As long as I'm like this, you can never hurt me, little girl," Doublefinger challenged, spikes still coming out of every body part and making her look like a ball of spikes. "Let's see if I can melt you then," Nami suddenly exclaimed before releasing an incredible heat wave from her body. causing her entire body to start imitating light from toe to head. A light bloomed from Nami, slowly getting so bright that one would think she was turning into a star. Miss Doublefinger was sweating heavily as her throat went drier than the desert itself. She looked away as the light was burning her eyes. Soon, she removed her spikes, thinking of running away from the incredible heat since she couldn't do that when she was like a ball of spikes. As soon as her body turned normal, 2 gold shards launched from Nami's wings, stabbing her ankles to the bone and out. Miss Doublefinger screamed in pain, falling to her knees, unable to move anymore. The heat now was unbearable. Her skin was burning as she felt her entire body burning up, pain and more pain, her sweat now turning to steam immediately, her eyes were burning, and closing her eyes wasn't working anymore. She was burning. No flames around, but she was still burning alive. She let out a hideous scream, pain, pain, she screamed. Suddenly something sharp pierced her heart, the pain went away, and her body fell on the sand, as her body burned from the heat. Nami let out a final heat wave, every building around her had crumbled down to nothing. She opened her eyes, and her wounds had healed, but she felt tired, way too tired. Despite being enemies, the navigator killed her by piercing her heart instead of letting her die screaming. Her eyes landed on where Miss Doublefinger had been. Only ash left that soon was scattered away by the wind. Damn, this took from me more than I thought, Nami thought, breathing heavily. Falling on one knee, she noticed that the sun was not bothering her anymore, but she ignored it for now. Perhaps it had something to do with her last technique. Her eyes landed on the castle, probably where Vivi was right now. Ignoring her tired arms and legs, she forcefully stood up before running towards the castle, knowing the blood could be spilled at any moment. Vivi arriving at the palace with the help of Pell, the loyal warrior of Alabasta, turned to human as Vivi and Nijiko jumped from him, landing roughly on the floor. They were soon greeted by 4 soldiers holding spears, and amongst them was someone Vivi recognized right away. Chaka hadn't changed much since the last time she had seen him. Princess Vivi, thank the gods, you're back home. The man spoke with happiness as soon as he recognized the princess before kneeling in front of the princess along with his 3 soldiers. Despite being on the castle's roof, they could still hear the voices of thousands of people just outside the castle. Almost the entire royal army was right outside, keeping them from barging in. The leader of the revolutionary army was right in front of his army, calling for Cobra to come out and surrender to them. The royal soldiers weren't sure what to do since their orders were to keep the army outside but not kill. Honor of both armies were a few men holding guns in their hands, with tattoos on their arms. They smirked as they aimed their guns at the royal army. It's good to see you too, Chaka, but I need to see my father right away, Vivi said in a hurry, her voice sounding commanding as she spoke, something Nijiko and Pell noticed right away, both nodding in approval. Of course, princess, follow me, the man agreed, standing up before leading her inside the castle from the roof. Passing through many corridors, Vivi noticed that every soldier was keeping guard, but all of them kneeled the moment they saw her, calling her princess as she passed. I need to stop this with everything I have, she thought with conviction. Soon they reached a double door. Chada opened the door, and in the center of the room stood her father with several other soldiers, holding his head with his hands. Despite being years since she had last seen him, Vivi recognized him right away, her eyes welling up with tears. Cobra, who looked older than his age, looked up when he heard the door opening. His eyes saw her face. She had grown so much and looked so much like her, almost mistaking Vivi for her mother. Vivi, Cobra spoke, his eyes welling up as he slowly walked towards her, almost not believing his eyes. Father! Vivi screamed, throwing her arms around him, hugging him close as she cried, her tears wetting his shoulder. After years of being away from him, all those years, now, she was finally with her father again. Vivi, you have grown so much, your mother would be proud of you, Cobra spoke, crying more, almost not believing that she was right in front of him. A part of him thought that he would soon wake up from this beautiful dream. Stepping away, Cobra noticed the unknown girl with blue hair standing at the door. He was about to ask how she got here when they both heard multiple gunshots outside. This caused both Vivi and her father to freeze in worry. What happened? Chaba demanded, blasting the door open. Vivi rushed outside towards the balcony of the king's room but was stopped by 4 soldiers guarding the balcony. "My king, it is not safe outside. They have guns," one of them shouted, trying to stop them, but the king ignored him. Vivi passed through as Najiko was standing close to her in case any from the rebellion was too trigger-happy. Stepping outside, only to see Royal Soldier and the Revolutionary Army fighting. "Stop," Vivi spoke weakly, more and more soldiers fighting each other. Royal soldiers used their spears to block the giant army as best as they could. The troops looked like an ocean of people. Cries of pain and despair were bombarding Vivi's ears. It seemed it was too late. Vivi wouldn't be able to stop anything. All hope was lost. Smoke field, mirror slash, in the center where the armies were fighting. A cloud spread out. A sword attack caused a line to be formed in the sand. Both armies pulled away from each other, not being able to see anything. The fighting had stopped, as the troops stood over 20 meters away from each other. The smoke soon cleared out, revealing Marine Captain Smoker standing along with 2 swordswomen, his eyes looking at both armies. Many looked confused at the Marine Captain, who showed up out of nowhere. Inhaling on his cigarette, he eyed everyone who looked ready to fight. "Now, everyone stand down, unless you want to fight us," Smoker announced, putting his weapon over his shoulder. His subordinate was looking at the royal army protecting the castle, and Asuka had her sword pointed at the Revolutionary Army who had watched her slashing the entire field. They didn't want to know what she could do to a person. Smoker was watching both sides, his arms and legs slowly turning to smoke. Back at the castle, Vivi was relieved to see the Marines, but she now knew what she needed to do before the fighting continued, quickly turning to her father. "Father, put the white flag right now. Only then they might listen to us. Hurry before they start fighting again," Vivi ordered. Her father understood what her daughter was saying before telling Chaka to do that. Vivi quickly walked out of her father's room, followed by Najiko and a small group of soldiers. "I'm going down there," she shouted with conviction, ignoring some telling her that it was too dangerous. "I will watch the skies, princess," Pell told her from behind. She quickly nodded as the best warrior of Alabasta ran towards the nearest balcony before jumping as he turned into a falcon, his sharp eyes scanning everything around him. "You can do it, princess," he thought, his eyes looking at the castle gates and remembering a much younger princess playing with things she shouldn't. Back in the ground, Smoker was threatening both sides to stand down. His arms and legs were smoke as he glared at them, daring some to attack him. But his smoke body made them doubtful if it was a good idea to attack him. "Do you want to fight so badly? Come on, be my guest," Smoker shouted, spreading his arms as an invitation to the revolutionary side to attack. Toshigi seriously doubted her captain was sane. "Stand down, my men. Stand down," a revolutionary man shouted at them, making many stop immediately, something Smoker noticed right away, especially his booming voice. "Why should we stop, Koza?" one shouted at the man, who pointed at the white flying on top of the castle. Looking over his shoulder, Smoker let a huff. "Just when I was warming up," he thought, looking at the white flag. Right then the gates opened, revealing the princess. Smoker's eyes landed on the princess in the company of one of the Straw Hats. "My grandson might be a pirate, Smoker, but I will never doubt his sense of justice," Vice Admiral Garp's words repeated in his ears. Vivi arrived at the large street that led to the castle. It was the largest part of the city, now full of people who wanted blood, as soon as she stood up on a pedestal so everyone could see her. The soldiers following her used large horns of surrender. The booming voice of the horns made everyone stop, and everyone's eyes landed on the princess. "Vivi?" Kuza shouted, surprised and pleased to see his childhood friend. His eyes landed on the Marine captain. "Help me to get there," he shouted at him, who narrowed his eyes. "Huh? My name's Koza." Vivi. Both armies were confused to see the white flag. Many were asking themselves what was happening, while a few were thinking about what to do to start the fighting. Their orders were to do everything in order for the fighting not to stop, soon deciding to aim at the princess. Are they really surrendering? Is this over? Where's the king? Everyone, please stop. It's over. We surrender. This fight is over. There's no need for more bloodshed, she shouted as loud as possible, her voice booming throughout the entire sea of people who fell silent when they heard the princess's words. For years, we have suffered, without water, without anything. But the true enemy of Alabasta has been defeated. The Baroque works. Vivi gave a brief summary of what had happened in Alabasta for the last 3 years and how Crocodile has manipulated everyone. The people looked stunned after they heard the story, but the Revolutionary Army wasn't sure how to feel. What the princess was saying made sense, and it explained many things, but many were doubtful, thinking that the princess was trying to save her father's skin. Liar, kill her, she's just like her father. Many were shouting, soon joined by many more and more. Vivi felt everything slipping away again when a voice boomed. Silence. Vivi looked to her right to see Kuza standing beside her, with Smoker, who was eyeing him like an eagle when the revolutionaries saw their leader standing alongside the princess. That's Kuza. What is he doing there? Was Princess Vivi speaking the truth? Many spoke amongst each other and stood quiet as Kuza turned to the princess. All of them trusted Kuza with their hearts. They followed his lead, after all. Kuza looked Vivi dead in the eye for everyone to hear. What you said? About the rain and the warlord, is it all true? He questioned sharply, looking at her. He would know if she was lying. He wouldn't allow himself to get fooled. Vivi felt her eyes tearing up before nodding. Everything I said is the truth, Crocodile. The warlord was our true enemy, she spoke with conviction, her eyes ablaze, looking at her childhood friend. A smile formed on Kuza's face. She's not lying, Kuza thought, remembering all the times she had lied beforehand. Vivi felt relief flooding her body like a violent river as Kuza turned to his army. Everyone stand down. This war is over. The king will speak with all of us soon, he shouted. Almost everyone in the Revolutionary Army gasped. Many looked at each other doubtfully, wondering what to do, but some immediately threw their weapons down, followed by more when. Shoot 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 4 bullets aimed at both Vivi and Kuza flew through the air. Just as they were about to hit, a hand grabbed each bullet before it could kill the princess and Kuza. Vivi gasped when she saw Nijiko standing before her, the bullets still hot on her hands as she let them fall one by one. Vivi's eyes quickly turned to the ones who shot. On their arms were tattoos, pointing her finger. They are from Baroque works. Look at the tattoos on their arms, she shouted. Smoker cursed under his breath, but it seemed Toshigi and Asuka, who were much closer, dealt with them. The soldiers with tattoos were already down on the ground. Everyone around could clearly see the tattoo. Dripping dripping dripping, everyone looked up in shock, many touching their foreheads. The liquid on their heads was rain. The swords and guns started slipping from their hands as more rain started falling. No one knew where the clouds had come from, but it was raining. Is raining? Thank the gods, unbelievable. Voices of happiness were heard amongst the crowd. Vivi closed her mouth, knowing who the person doing this was. Thank you, Luffy. The princess was about to order the guards to bring her father outside for everyone to see when they heard a shooting from the watchtower. Pell, who had been watching the skies, noticed 2 people aiming at Vivi. Not as long as I live, he thought quickly, using his guns to kill the first and his sword to kill the second. When they both died and the fighting seemed to have stopped, Pell was about to breathe in relief when he heard it. Ticking. What's that noise? Pell turned his head to the cannon as a faint ticking sound could be heard. He looked at the end of the cannon to see a giant bomb, on it a timer that ticking down. A bomb? Pell turned into his falcon form and latched onto the huge bomb with his talons. He had only a couple of minutes before the device detonated. He had to get it as far away from here as possible. Everyone on the ground below could see Pell, the falcon, carrying a large bomb before he started flying up into the sky. Not looking back, never. To protect the royal Nefertari household is a duty, princess. That I sincerely consider my proudest moment. Fly higher, Pell, Vivi shouted, both of them flying over the castle. This is between us, princess. Your father won't be happy to know I'm still taking you with me. Pell spoke as the little princess slapped his back playfully. Don't worry, Pell, but you still own me, don't forget that. Vivi spoke with a broad smile looking at the sunset. Pell smiled along with her. I will always protect you, princess, he promised himself. Flying higher. Ticking. Ticking, I'm the guardian of Alabasta, the falcon. Like a second sun, the explosion illuminated the entire Alabasta, the wind spreading far and wide, the explosion larger than the city underneath. Pell, Vivi shouted in despair. On that day, Pell, the falcon, gave his life for Alabasta. The following day after the war ended, almost the entire Alabasta had gathered in front of the capital to listen to their king talk to them after 3 years of no rain, since yesterday it had started and hadn't stopped raining. The people were cheering around the streets, kids were playing together with water. Above his people, Cobra walked in front of them, standing on the top of a large round balcony, followed by 6 soldiers. The Straw Hat crew were nearby in case something happened. But Luffy reassured them they had nothing to fear. He told them, amongst the crowd there were many who still held ill intentions towards the king but not enough to think of trying to kill him after what happened yesterday. Cobra raised his hand to silence everyone. In front of him stood an ocean of people, different faces as far as the eye could see. King Cobra, after a long time, could finally talk with his people without the fear of dying. Cobra told everyone what Princess Vivi told everyone, how Crocodile had been responsible for everything that happened in Alabasta. He and his group of people started shouting for the crocodile to be punished with Insect's Feast, the worst death punishment in Alabasta. Still, that punishment had been abandoned for over a century now. Cobra told the crowd that a young pirate had eliminated Crocodile Monkey D. Luffy. When his name was heard, the crowd cheered for the pirate. Luffy, Luffy, Luffy. Cobra had wanted Luffy to talk to his people, to introduce himself, but the pirate had kindly declined the offer, saying he wasn't really good with crowds. Amongst the crowds were Smoker and Tashigi. Asuka had left yesterday, saying she needed to deal with her own personal business. Smoker didn't really care much what her business was. His eyes looked at everyone around him. To think so many people were cheering for a pirate was baffling, to say the least. "Captain Smoker, what are we going to do?" Tashigi questioned with a hushed tone beside him. The captain stood silent for a moment before letting out a huff. "There's nothing we can do right now. Perhaps some other time," Smoker said before he turned around, walking away from the crowd still cheering for a pirate, followed closely by Tashigi, who glanced briefly at the capital. Her mind was going to a certain swordsman there. "This is not the last time we meet, Roronoa Zoro," she promised herself. Smoker left out a huff, Vice Admiral Garp's words repeating in his head. The king finished his tale with shouts and praises from his people. Seeing them smile brought a smile to his face. Not even 2 days ago, he had been sure that he would die from his own people, and he would never see Vivi ever again. Not only he saw her again, but now he could live and see his daughter sit on the throne of Alabasta and rule the country after him. Cobra knew Vivi would be a perfect queen. Still, he hadn't missed the glances she had given the young pirate, especially yesterday when the pirate captain had returned. His daughter had hugged him tightly, crying on his shoulder, both tears of happiness and sadness. While Cobra had nothing against his daughter liking the young pirate, she needed to understand that the captain couldn't stay here forever unless. Cobra let out a small chuckle. His daughter had grown before he even realized it, and he decided to leave it to her whenever she wanted an adventure or to rule her country. It was a tough choice. Cobra briefly glanced at Chaka, who had a long face. Pell's loss was a heavy one. He was a symbol in Alabasta for a very long time. He was known as the best warrior, but in the end, he died doing what he believed was the right thing to do. After his speech to the crowd, he walked inside. His head felt a little heavy. Yesterday, the pirate captain had talked to him, telling him that today he needed his permission for something. Cobra didn't know what the captain pirate wanted, but whatever it was, it needed his permission. Later, Luffy after the war ended, Luffy and his crew were given the guests' quarters to rest as long as they liked. Luffy knew they didn't have that much time for the latter, but they could stay 1 week before they went into their merry way with 1 or 2 more crew members. Luffy didn't know which one, but as long as Vivi was happy with her choice, he wouldn't be against it. Right now, he was making his way towards the main hall of the castle, being accompanied by a very unusual company, and knowing Luffy, that was something that rarely happened. "I appreciate again what you are doing for me, Captain." The voice of the former Crocodile's partner was heard beside him. After the death of Crocodile, she took care of him for a short time before thinking to go and read the poneglyph under the castle during the war, kidnap the king and force him to tell her where the poneglyph was. Luffy had made a different deal with her. She does nothing, and they together go to the poneglyph. "Why should I listen to you? You're tired and used all your strength against Crocodile. In case you haven't noticed, you're at my mercy," the woman said with narrowed eyes towards Luffy, who was lying in a bed. Hearing those words, everything suddenly was cold. The woman's breath was suddenly visible. And suddenly feeling as if a knife was touching her neck, she touched her skin, but there were no traces of blood. Monkey D. Luffy had his eyes narrowed dangerously at her. His glare made the woman feel uneasy, taking a step back before she even realized it. "Do not underestimate me. Many people did, and they're nothing but corpses," Luffy threatened, his voice deep and dark. The woman's breath got hard. She could hardly fill her lungs with air, as if something was stopping her from breathing, like an invisible rope was slowly tightening up around her neck. "What are you suggesting then?" the woman asked instead. Suddenly, the pressure around her neck disappeared, and she almost fell to her knees when she could breathe freely again. Soon Luffy and Crocodile's former captain made a deal. The former partner of Crocodile had asked the pirate captain why he wanted to see the poneglyph with her, and he only answered that they needed to find the One Piece. Shanks had told Luffy that he needed to find all poneglyphs to find One Piece one day. The former partner of Crocodile could tell that Luffy was keeping something from her. Whatever it was, she hoped it was nothing malicious, but the captain didn't seem like someone who would do bad things to achieve his goals, unlike Crocodile. Being led to a big double door, the soldiers opened it, letting out a loud metallic sound. They both walked inside. King Cobra was sitting on his throne, a set of stairs leading to his throne that was made of gold and the best wood in Alabasta. On each side of him were 5 guards with spears, one of them was Chaka. When the king's eyes found the pirate captain, he raised his hand. "Everyone else, leave the room. This is between the pirate and me," he announced, surprising everyone, his guards looking at him bewildered, especially Chaka, who quickly regained his composure before clearing his throat. "Your Majesty, are you sure? We don't know the identity of the woman." "I have no doubts the pirate is safe, but what about her?" Chaka whispered in his ear, clearly worried, pointing at the woman standing beside the pirate captain. "My daughter was in the company of that same captain for months. If she trusts them, then I trust them as well. As for the women, I don't think Monkey D. Luffy would bring her here if she were a danger to me," Cobra replied, giving his guard a look. Chaka quickly nodded before telling his soldiers to leave. The door closed, leaving them completely silent until Luffy stepped forward and cleared his throat. "I will get straight to the point. I heard there's a poneglyph under the city. I want to see it," his voice calm but demanding, clearly showing that he wasn't going to sway from this. His words made Cobra's throat go dry as he tensed where he was sitting. The king's eyes shifted from the captain to the Womalankas aboard, but he could see her lips twitch slightly when the damn thing was mentioned, his hands gripping around the arms of his throne. Sweat rolls down his forehead to his jaw, dripping onto the floor. "Why?" the king asked, his voice shaking slightly, but he quickly remembered that he was the king. He couldn't show weakness. "My objective is to find the One Piece, and I need to know the information on them to find it," the captain explained as if it was obvious. His words almost made the king gasp in shock. Abruptly standing up from his throne, he looked down at the captain with uncertainty, his heart beating in his throat like a hammer. Cobra knew the danger. The poneglyph held the information behind the 3 most dangerous weapons in the world. Weapons powerful enough to conquer the whole world and wipe out everything in existence. "You can read them," Cobra shouted. From all he knew, only those from Ohara Kid, and they were eliminated. None were left standing. "She can," the captain said, pointing his thumb at the woman, who straightened up slightly. "I understand your concern. I'm not interested in information about the ancient weapons or their location. I only want information about One Piece," Luffy explained with a serious low tone. His tone made the king shiver in his seat. Even Robin, who was beside Luffy, felt a shiver in her spine, now understanding why someone like him was able to kill Crocodile. The king was uncertain. On one side, he knew the danger, but on another side, the man in front of him saved his daughter and his entire kingdom. He had a big debt, a debt he could never repay. With that thought on his mind, he swallowed hard, hoping that what he would do wasn't something he was going to regret. The king walked downstairs with heavy steps, standing on the same level as the captain and the woman who had been dead silent throughout the entire conversation. "Very well, Monkey D. Luffy. Follow me." A part of him still not believing that he was actually doing this. He just hoped the higher-ups would never find out about this. Hearing his words, the captain simply nodded, But the woman showed emotions for the first time. A small smile formed on her face. Vivi spent the rest of the day walking through the city of Alubarna, visiting the various shops and stalls there with Nejiko and Nami. She wanted to make sure that she saw every face that inhabited her precious city, making sure that no one would be left out of her heart. Some greeted her with waves and formal acknowledgments, and others thanked her for all she had done for them. While walking past a food mart, she spotted a few suspicious-looking characters out of the corner of her eye. They were staying close together and were looking around, making sure no one saw them. Staying out of sight, she observed the men's actions. The men maneuvered their way around and through the various shops and eventually led a man into a dark dead-end alley. Vivi ran towards the men in the alley. When she got there, she saw them kicking him in the face and body. He was a fighter, but there were too many men against him. "Hey, stop that!" Vivi shouted, glaring at them. They turned, and from their eyes, they recognized her. "Princess, let us deal with this the man in the front said before kicking the man in the face, breaking his teeth. That was until Nami's kick sent one to the wall. The two remaining men turned to attack. One pulling out a couple of knives, the other unsheathing a sword. Vivi with a confident look on her face. This would be a test before leaving her homeland. Dodging the one with the knives, she turned her attention to the swordsman. He tried to bring his sword down on her head, but she easily dodged and set up for an attack. She hit him in the head with as much hockey as she could. He was knocked out cold. Knives Wielder, as she had decided to nickname him, was trying to surprise her from behind, but she simply stepped to the side and brought forth the final blow. But Nejiko intervened, sending him flying into the wall. Observing their work for just a second, she then walked towards the beaten man. "Hey, it's okay now. They won't bother you anymore." The man, recognizing her voice, looked up, tears streaming down his face. When he saw her face, the tears stopped, and a smile slowly made its way across his face. "Oh, I'm really sorry, princess." Vivi looked confused and helped him back to his house. Once Vivi was sure that the man would be all right, she made her way back to the palace. When she asked Chaba why they would beat him up, he told him many people were still publicly against her father despite what happened yesterday. The man was probably openly against her family, and the other man were trying to beat him up. Vivi wasn't sure how to feel about it. She made her way to her room and was greeted by Igaram. "Hell. Ahem. Ma. Hello there, princess. How are you doing today?" "Oh hey, Igaram. I'm doing just fine right now. Yourself?" "Oh, same thing every day, but I never tire of it." "I see. So you and father were following me again?" she said, smiling. "Oh, no, nothing like that. Your father just asked me to help make the preparations for your coming-of-age ceremony." "That's great, but don't overdo it," Vivi said with a smile, and he hugged her. Vivi returned the hug and then turned to her room. "I'll see you tomorrow, Igaram." She went to her bag, making sure she had everything she needed. Then she got in her bed and lay there. Suddenly the room opened, revealing Nami and Nejiko. "So, why are you looking at the wall?" Nami asked, looking around the royal room as she did. Nejiko checked a book that was simply sitting at a table. "Nothing, Jay, just thinking about something," she said, her mind going to Luffy. Sadly, the navigator saw right through her. "Is that something, perhaps Luffy?" she asked teasingly, sitting on the edge of the bed right in front of the princess, who blushed. Nami. Aye. Her words were interrupted by Nami silencing her with a kiss. Vivi's eyes widened, and warmth spread in her body as her arms went around the navigator. She returned the kiss without thinking, and the navigator's tongue entered her mouth, making the princess moan in pleasure. Soon they pulled back. Vivi's face was all red. "How about tonight, after the feast, you go to his room?" Nami suggested with a seducing tone that the princess had never heard before. She couldn't help but nod. The thought of being with Luffy was something she would never let the opportunity slide. Secret tunnel. Robin walking deeper and deeper. Robin felt her heart beating faster the closer they got. The darkness around them was illuminated by the dim light coming from a lantern the king was holding. Her eyes watched at the old stone used to build the tunnel, cracks everywhere filled with dust and spider webs. Robin could almost feel a few rats running away when the light from the lantern got close. Captain Luffy was dead silent throughout the whole thing. Robin didn't know if the pirate had some hidden agenda, But she didn't care. This poneglyph would reveal to her what her people had given their lives for. For a very long time she had dreamed this moment. Betrayal after betrayal, hiding, and scheming, she finally found it. It was within her grasp. Mother, Saul, this is it. You gave your lives that day for this moment. I'm here now, she thought. Soon they reached a large square room. The roof was at least 20 meters above their heads. Pictures and drawings made around the wall of a very long time ago, and in the center was the poneglyph, 3 meters tall and 5 meters wide. The sight of it made her exhale, almost not believing her eyes. So, this is a poneglyph, the captain's voice reached her ears, but she barely paid him attention. Her legs were almost shaking as she walked up to the poneglyph. The words were clear to her. This is it, she thought, swallowing a huge breath. She could hear the captain and the king discussing something behind her in hushed tones, but she paid them no ouching the cold surface. She started translating everything. Where is it? No, where is it? She thought, alarmed, reading and rereading. It wasn't here. Falling on her knees, her eyes letting out tears before she even realized it. Covering her face with her hand, she left out muffled sobs. Is not here. Why isn't it here? What isn't? The king asked from behind her. I don't care about the damn location. I just wanted to know the truth, to know the history. That's all we ever wanted, she shouted at the end, on her knees, her forehead touching the surface of the poneglyph. The truth? It was Luffy who asked this time, his hand on her shoulder to comfort her. Robin didn't know when he did that but appreciated the gesture. Wiping away tears, she took a deep breath, clearing her voice to speak plainly. The truth of the Void Century. That's all our people wanted to know. That's all I wanted to know. This poneglyph is worthless to me, Robin explained. She looked over her shoulder to see Captain Luffy offering her a hand to stand up. Reluctantly she accepted his hand, standing up to look at the king, whose face was as pale as a ghost. Only the truth. If that's the case, why did they slaughter? His jaw clenched. He looked deep in thought, his mouth opening and closing several times. Robin didn't care what he was saying, she was tired, and there was no reason for her to keep going. All this was a waste of time, all that suffering and death? For what? She asked herself. The image of a giant laughing as he got frozen flashed through her eyes when the captain turned to look at the king. King Cobra, can you leave me alone with her? Luffy requested respectfully. The king arched an eyebrow. He didn't look like he wanted to but eventually walked away, leaving them alone. Robin turned to look at the captain, who looked back at her. I want you to join my crew, the captain abruptly said out of nowhere. Robin blinked. For a very long time, she had never been left with her mouth open. Why? You said you wanted to know the truth. My goal is to become the Pirate King. I will need to travel the whole world to do that. If you come with me, I will guarantee you protection, the truth, but most importantly, friendship, Luffy promised, extending his hand towards her. Robin looked at his hand. A part of her wanted to refuse him, and he would betray her in the end. Everyone does, she thought, remembering the many times she was betrayed. But another part yearned for what he was offering, friendship, she thought. The word sounded strange to her, almost without meaning. Someday you will find your nakamas, surely one day. This world is vast. They will appear to protect you. Once you're born into this world, you're never going to be alone. Robin almost shed tears, his voice clear in her head. Remembering his words, she looked up at his smiling face. Closing her eyes, she shakes his hand. I accept, Captain, from now on. I'm your nakama, she exclaimed, smiling. Luffy squeezed her hand. Now, I want to know what I asked you in our first meeting, Luffy said, tilting his head to the side with a broad smile on his face. Robin laughed in amusement, not actually believing that he still remembered that. Eventually stopping, she looked directly into his eyes. My name is Nico Robin. Makino was busy cleaning a cup, and Mayor Whoopslap was taking a sip from his glass filled with wine. Usually, he drank whiskey or other strong alcohol drinks, but today he decided to go easier. He and a group of men were busy discussing about Luffy and his crew. Most importantly, apparently, something had happened in the Germa Kingdom. Makino didn't really pay them any attention, her mind going to a certain red-haired pirate and Luffy. Has been some time since she had last seen him, and newspapers were the only form of information she could get for now. Seeing the empty glass in the bar, Makino was about to fill it when the door burst open. Everyone look at this. The man shouted at the top of his lungs, holding a newspaper and what looked like bounties in his right hand. "What the hell has gotten into you, Hancock?" Mayor Whoopslap questioned with annoyance. He was having a great drink until the idiot decided to ruin it. He hoped the man had a good reason for barging inside like that. One would think he was running from pirates or bandits. "Luffy has a new bounty," the man shouted instead, slamming the bounty on the bar. Hearing his words made Makino stop whatever she was doing but leaned over the bar. Her eyes widened at the new bounty. His photo was the same but not the numbers below. Mayor Whoopslap rubbed his eyes roughly. "I haven't drank whiskey today, have I?" He asked no one in particular as the others shared a burst of laughter. Makino smiled, knowing Luffy was doing well. "I can't believe the little brat who cried about everything is now worth 356.000.000 berries." One of them shouted, soon dancing around the bar, holding bottles full of beers, dancing and laughing. Makino felt her eyes welling. Grabbing the poster, she looked it from up close. Luffy seemed very happy. In the background, she could hear Mayor Whoopslap chiding the group of men as if they were a group of children. "Don't dance, and don't sing. What's so good that a pirate is from our village?" He shouted with a dangerous tick mark on his forehead, but it seemed his words were going over their heads. Makino laughed at the annoyed face of Mayor Whoopslap, who sat roughly on the bar stool, his eyes shifting at the bottle of whiskey just behind Makino. "Give me the good shit. I will need it after today," he said sternly, taking a shot. He already felt better. Makino wondered how Whoopslap could drink so much without getting drunk. Now that she thought of it, she had yet to see Whoopslap get drunk, but Makino quickly dismissed the thought. It wasn't important to her. "They're just happy Luffy is becoming famous and achieving his dream," Makino said with a cute smile. Eventually, the whole town heard about Luffy, and soon Makino found herself busy. The entire bar was filled with customers. Mayor Whoopslap had started helping her instead of drinking himself, but Makino noticed he looked as if he was too deep in thought all the time. Portgas Dace sitting in a bar, he was shoving his face with meat, sausages, and most importantly, donuts, but that was the dessert, and like any dessert, it was the last to be eaten. Grabbing another piece of roasted lizard meat, swallowing and grabbing another one, the bartender could do nothing but gasp, at the same time wondering where Ace was keeping his wallet since he seemed not to have one. Ace had decided to stick around Alabasta a bit longer than necessary. While he had no doubts his brother could defeat Crocodile, he wanted to stay just in case his careless brother needed help, and not to mention he still needed and wanted to talk with Asuka. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Ace missed her, despite knowing he didn't deserve what Asuka was giving him. Right now, he was in a bar in Alubarna. Unlike yesterday had been complete chaos. Today everyone was celebrating, drinks were running out, the alleys everywhere were being used, and some of the bars had already closed due to the absence of food and beverages to serve to the customers. Yesterday, his observation hockey had gone high alert for a whole minute until it ended when a massive explosion happened to shake the entire landscape. Ace wondered what could have caused such a big explosion. Soon hearing from people around the bar and streets that a man named Pell, the greatest warrior of Alabasta, had sacrificed himself to save the city from a bomb that Crocodile had set up to explode and take the entire city with it. Ace hadn't known the man but still held a moment of silence for the unknown warrior. There were many fighters and warriors out there who declared they would sacrifice everything for what they believed, and yet only a few would go through with it. Now that Crocodile was out of the picture, he wondered who would fill his place. He knew there was a chance that the role would be filled by the one who defeated him. There were cases before when the one who defeated the warlord was the new warlord. The thought of being able to sail without the risk of navy hunting your ass was quite tempting for many pirates. But Ace doubted Luffy would accept it. He wasn't someone that would follow someone's orders. Now, he was waiting for Asuka's arrival. He still needed information that she could provide to him. Bringing him a plate full of soup, Ace didn't bother waiting for the soup to cool down, savoring the taste as much as possible. After eating everything, it was time to eat a donut sprinkled with red cream. Just as he was about to take the first bite, the door slammed open, a wind wave knocking everyone from their seats except Ace, who didn't budge from his seat, except the donut that slipped from his fingertips. "Ah, I was just about to AITTTT, he screamed, the person grabbing his ear as if he was a child, almost lifting him in the air. Just as Ace was about to tell her to knock it off, the woman made him turn around, giving him a sloppy kiss in the process. Ace felt his brain melt at the feeling, but sadly quickly ended when she stepped back from him, giving him a wink, and looking at him with loving eyes. Ace gave her a look that said, "You're cruel." Her sword was strapped to her waist, but she was wearing civilian clothes instead of her marine uniform, and a hoodie covered her red hair. "Can I have another one?" Ace asked with a cheeky grin. Looking at her, she snickered at his words before grabbing his wrist and leading him outside. The bartender was about to stop them when the girl threw him a gold coin worth 100k berries. Later, after 7 hours of fun, they found themselves in an alley. Unlike before, now Asuka was wearing her uniform, her hoodie still covering her red hair. Ace smirked at the flushed face of Asuka, who narrowed her eyes playfully. "I will slap that smirk away, Ace. Not even Whitebeard will save you from my wrath," she spoke, pointing her index finger at him in a threatening way, but her voice betrayed her. "Oh, your wrath. You seemed to have quite a wrath just an hour ago." Ace spoke with the same smirk. Always loved to tease her. "But it seems she could play the game as well. And, I remember you kneeling in front of me so that you could eat, anyway." Ace interrupted, closing her mouth with a flush on his face, the marine officer still smirking behind his hand. Ace smiled melancholy, his face filling with sadness suddenly, something his girlfriend noticed right away. "Ace, you all right?" she questioned, concerned, putting a comforting hand on his shoulder. The second commander of Whitebeard pirates simply nodded, not saying anything. Asuka stepped closer, making him look at her. "You know you can tell me everything?" "I know, not everything," he thought with regret. He knew he didn't deserve it, yet, the selfish part of him craved what Asuka offered. Love, a very good friend, and in the future perhaps. "Ace, have you heard of your brother's new bounty?" Asuka's words made him escape his thoughts. Ace quickly dismissed the ridiculous thought from his head. "New bounty, already? Indeed, his new bounty is 356.000.000 berries," she informed him. Ace's eyes widened at the new Bona whistle, rubbing the back of his head. "Damn, Luffy, I had a 3-year head start, and you're already catching up to me. This is embarrassing," Ace thought out loud, wondering what he should do to increase his bounty again. Asuka rolled her eyes at his words. She didn't understand the pirates' desire to have their bounties bigger than everyone else. "Asuka, do you have information on Blackbeard's whereabouts?" Ace asked, his voice changing from playful to serious. Asuka's bright smile wavered a little before letting out a long sigh. "I have. He has been seen near Mocktown. As for his devil fruit, I found nothing about it," she informed him, her voice sounding professional, making it clear her thoughts on him going alone to avenge his crewmate. Ace nodded, not that much bothered that he had no information on the fruit Blackbeard stole from them. He had the Mera Mera no Mi, and he would easily defeat him. "Thank you, Asuka. I appreciate it. Now return before they start asking questions," Ace said seriously. They shared another kiss before the pirate walked past her when Asuka grabbed his wrist. "If you die, I will never forgive you," she promised, her eyes stoic, almost void of emotions, not looking at him, instead looking at the spot he was a moment ago. For a brief second, Ace was reminded of how Asuka was towards him when they first met, stoic and cold like winter. Eventually showing a much kinder side to him, Ace took great pride that Asuka would show her softer and more affectionate side only to him. A broad smile spread on Ace's face. "Don't worry, Asuka, the red blade. I will return before you know it. That's a promise." Asuka watched as the idiot, annoying, stupid, and stubborn pirate disappeared from her view. "That's a promise, Ace. Sabo, well, Luffy sure works fast," he said out loud at no one in particular, leaning against a wall of the ship. A small group of the Revolutionary Army, including Dragon, were making their way to Egghead. Sabo thought that was a strange name for an island. Sadly, Koala wasn't accompanying him this time. She was needed somewhere else. He was holding the new wanted poster in his hand. Sabo was a bit perplexed by the new bounty, from 70 million to 356 million. Strange, he thought. He had heard from Dragon himself that his little birds informed him that Luffy was currently fighting Crocodile despite being too far from each other. Sabo didn't really doubt the information the little birds provided. They had yet to be wrong about any information they provided. With that in mind, Sabo decided to inform Dragon. Opening his door, he reached the main deck of the ship. It was a cold day, and a cold breeze blew on his face, making him shudder. He saw the current of the water around the ship, it was too fast. Something's off about this weather, Sabo thought, his eyes finding Dragon, who was standing in front of the main deck, his arms folded in front of his chest, murmuring something under his breath that Sabo couldn't hear. "Sir, you might want to see this," Sabo said after walking up to him, tapping the now rolled newspaper against his shoulder. But there was no reaction from him, his mouth still moving, saying words that Sabo couldn't hear and couldn't quite understand. "They know, Sabo," Dragon suddenly said after a short silence between them, his voice void of emotions. "Who knows what? Garp, this time, I will beat you. This ends here," Garp declared, taking a deep breath, sweat rolling down his cheeks. His heart was beating in his throat like a hammer. Now or never, Garp thought, his stomach almost exploding, but he was ready. He had trained and meditated, he had done everything right to be here at this moment. "The record is mine," Garp declared, ready to eat his 1057th donut. As Garp prepared to eat another donut, this time, he would definitely break the world record even if it meant death. The door slammed open, falling to the ground again, causing a big metallic sound to echo throughout the room. The donut slipped from his fingers, much to his shock and annoyance. Garp didn't bother to look who it was as Sengoku slammed a bunch of posters in front of his face, crashing the whole table along with it. As if somehow it was Garp's fault. "Is your damn family again, Garp?" Sengoku almost spit fire from his mouth, his face red, ready to burst into flames. Garp wondered how a vein hadn't burst yet on his forehead. Garp just quirked an eyebrow, not caring as he rubbed his ears before grabbing the first poster. "H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A." Garp laughed loudly as tears streamed down his face while Sengoku looked red in the face, almost like a tomato. "That's my grandson," Garp stated before earning a punch from his best friend. "This is not funny, Garp. Look at the bounty again," Sengoku almost ordered. His voice made Garp stop laughing. Doing what he said, he focused on the bounty. "What about it? Is 356 million, so what? That old goat's bounty is over 5 billion, Garp said out loud, briefly thinking of Whitebeard. The man was quite dangerous, and his devil fruit was a dangerous thing. In a way, Garp was thankful that Whitebeard held Gura Gura no Mi. Someone just as powerful but with thoughts of conquering the world could have brought destruction with that thing. Garp's eyes darkened, and a flash of a man laughing passed through his eyes. His strength to this day made him still shudder a little. "Garp, the new bounty for your brat was supposed to be 256 million berries, but I'm afraid they have found out the truth," Sengoku spoke with a warning tone. Knowing Garp's protective nature towards his family, Garp's eyes narrowed dangerously upon hearing that his playful face changed to one filled with fury, and his haki shook the entire place. "If they touch him, I will put their heads on spikes on top of their precious Mariajoy." "Barati, hey, guys, look at Sanji," Patty shouted for everyone to hear. The other chefs ran inside, wanting to see what he was talking about. Meanwhile, Zeph was shaking his head in disapproval. "Are you trying to scare our clients? You better have a good reason," Zeph demanded with a huff, glaring at Patty, who shuddered from his gaze. "Look, is Sanji. He's famous now," another said, pointing at the wanted poster on Patty's big hand. The old chef quirked an eyebrow before looking at it from up close. A burst of laughter escaped from him. The others were surprised to hear Zeph laugh like this. "Well, it seems our boy has become even more famous," Zeph said, with a smile not leaving his face, holding the wanted poster. "You're doing great, Sanji," Zeph thought, feeling pride for the stupid pervert kid. Sanji. The Black Leg, dead or alive 139.696.969 berries. Gecko Island's big sister, look at this, Carrot said, pointing at the wanted poster in his hand. "Oh my, 39 million berries. Already," Kaya thought, looking at his picture, thinking he looked quite good. Usopp, the sniper, dead or alive 53.000.010 berries. Somewhere. What now? Shanks shouted, annoyed. His head was spinning, but he could muster enough strength to see two Ben Beckman in front of him. Both of them were looking down on him like a parent would look at their child with a look that literally said, "You're a disappointment." "Oh okay. Which one of you is real?" Shanks asked, grabbing his head with his hand, hoping it would stop spinning, but it was still spinning, and he felt like something was drilling in his fucking skull. Closing and opening his eyes. Now there were 3 Ben Beckmen in front of him. Great, now I have 3 vice captains. I wonder if I can have more? Ben let out a huff before spreading a paper in front of his captain's face. Perhaps this will make you sober. Shanks read the name, and a smile slowly formed on his face. Looking down at the number, a chuckle escaped his lips. Looking up, he was disappointed that there was only 1 Beckman now. "Guys, we are partying. Luffy has a new bounty," Shanks exclaimed, his declaration followed by cheers. Beckman rolled his eyes. He should have seen that coming. "Underwater, it seems WLD again," a voice said, holding a sword over his shoulder. A smirk formed on his face, holding the new bounty of Monkey D. Luffy in his hand. "Captain, we have arrived at Lugia Kingdom, Luffy. I want to hold a toast for the people who saved my country and for all the people who sacrificed their lives so we could be here," the king said, raising his glass into the air. "Cheers!" Everyone else sitting at the table shouted. Soon, the banquet started. The soldiers around the room looked shocked to see the pirate captain eat what was enough for 5 people in one bite. Holding a rice ball filled with ingredients of alabasta, eating 3 of them, his hands and mouth moving on their own, some soldiers wondered how he wasn't accidentally biting his own hand or eating the table. "Move out of the way," a servant shouted, passing through, holding a great lizard, followed by different types of fruits and vegetables. Luffy's eyes turned to stars at the new meal. With one bit, he ate one of the legs that were as big as he himself was. "They have no dignity," one soldier murmured, shocked, looking at the captain eating what would be enough food for a small army. "Look at the princess," one said, pointing at the princess laughing. Luffy had tried to steal Usopp's food only for him to add the spicy hot sauce that would make many men cry. The captain grabbed it without thinking twice, only for him to spit fire. "Ha ha ha ha." Usopp laughed along with the others. Zoro was busy drinking beer but still enjoying the banquet. Sanji was more looking at the food, analyzing it, and giving advice to a blushing chef behind him. The woman was a brunette and was listening to everything Sanji said and writing it on a notepad. Nami and Najiko were eating without the risk of the captain stealing their food. Eventually, the guards started laughing when Usopp and Chopper started making faces and jokes for everyone. After the banquet ended, Vivi requested that Luffy walk her to her bedchamber, with the excuse that she wanted to talk with him. Once they entered the bedchamber, Luffy closed the door behind him. Once he turned at Vivi, the princess claimed his lips in a fierce kiss that almost took his breath away. Pulling out for a second, her eyes almost dark with lust. "I want you, Luffy," her hand on his cheek before giving Luffy a sloppy kiss. The captain returned the kiss before squeezing her ass cheeks. "Ah, yes," she moaned, liking the feeling of Luffy's hand on her. The captain smirked before carrying the beauty to his favorite place. Vivi gasped in delight as Luffy's long, hard cock sprung out, a pillar of flesh standing erect below her eyes. She was mesmerized by such a huge, magnificent phallus cock. Luffy's cock stood angrily, its tip pressing into Vivi's own wet cunt. "Well, I can see someone's ready. And very excited." Vivi giggled to herself at the sight of her captain's member becoming riled up. She looked up with a coquettish look in her eyes, gazing at Luffy. He had not taken his eyes off of her, gazing at her with a lustful look and a hot breath. Vivi knew that he was aching to jump her right then. No harm in seeing how much longer he could resist her. She reached down with a soft hand and took a gentle grip on Luffy's cock, making him groan lightly in pleasure and bite his lip at the sensation. He squeezed his hands together, focusing on resisting the urge to take Vivi right there. "I do like the look of this. Let's warm it up, shall we?" Vivi mused, planting a quick kiss on Luffy's chin. She started to slowly rub her hand up and down the long length of his cock, rubbing the stiff flesh with gentle strokes of her fingers from the tip to the balls, making sure to give Luffy pleasure while leaving him desperate for more. The smile on his face certainly showed that. "Oh fuck." Luffy breathed out in pleasure, delighting Vivi while she stroked his erect cock with a silky touch that stimulated all his nerves that sent shockwaves up his body. She could control him with such a single touch, leaving him helpless to her desires. And at this point, he wouldn't want it any other way. Soon, Luffy. Vivi teased as she continued to massage and caress Luffy's rock-hard member with her expert touch. She would run a finger around the tip, then slowly glide in downwards towards his base while her other hand fondled his large, firm balls in enjoyment. She was keeping him on the edge. Occasionally, Luffy would duck his head down, eager for a kiss, but she cheekily ducked her head out of the way. Not yet, naughty captain. Just a bit longer. But just when it looked like she was finished with her teasing and would give Luffy what he most desired, she certainly withdrew her hands from his cock and looked up at Luffy with an innocent, doe-eyed gaze. "That's enough for now, don't you agree?" she asked provocatively, biting her lip and smirking at the desperate look on her captain's face, denying him from more of her stimulating touch. Now, what to do Vivi's arousing behavior was suddenly cut off by an eager Luffy, unable to resist any longer, who grasped her by the waist, pulled her close, and crashed his lips down onto hers for a passionate kiss. Vivi was caught off guard only for a moment by her lover's brazenness and quickly matched him in their lip lock. Their tongues writhed around one another, their full lips collided together, his naked body pressed tightly against her own. Luffy cupped Vivi's head with one hand to lean down and kiss her while the other gripped her hip possessively. Vivi linked her hands around Luffy's head, curling a leg around Luffy's waist. With their eyes closed and passionate in their minds, they swapped spit and matched the movements of each other's lips. Their tongues swirled and danced in an erotic duel, in a hot, passionate duel of lovers. In the midst of their kiss, Luffy reached around Vivi's shapely waist with one hand and grasped one of the globes of her large rear with one hand, squeezing her soft flesh. Vivi gave a little squeal of surprised delight inside Luffy's mouth at this. Looking to return the favor, she reached one of her own hands and gave his own round, uncovered ass a firm squeeze. Luffy jumped at the sensation with a shocked gasp, and the two broke off their kiss, breathless, flushed, and with full, red lips. "Enjoy that, did you? It seems you enjoyed it just as much as I did," Luffy said with a little grin. He held onto Vivi, keeping her body flush against his as if he were afraid to let her go and ruin their moment. "Well, I can't deny that," Vivi admitted, licking her lips. "You're a natural kisser, Luffy." "Thanks. But one of us is slightly overdressed, wouldn't you agree?" Luffy suggested coyly. Vivi gently moved her hand to his chest. "Hop down into the pool, and I'll rectify that for you, my captain." Vivi leaned up and whispered seductively into Luffy's ear before giving him a little shove backward away from her. The royal quarters of the castle had pools and were the only ones. This gave Vivi a chance to look upon Luffy in all his naked glory. "If you insist." Luffy laughed, turning around to go down the steps and enter the pool. Luffy stepped down into the pool with Vivi's eyes glued to his rear. She moved forwards to the edge of the pool, looking down at her naked captain, standing in the middle of the pool with the water reaching up to his waist. "Enjoy the show, Luffy," Vivi said as she battered her eyes and began to take off her clothes. It was now Luffy's turn to watch the disrobing of his new lover, and what a treat it was. He stepped up, his pupils dilated with pure desire as Vivi stood directly in his line of sight. Before his eyes, Vivi moved achingly slow, her eyes never leaving his and her seductive, teasing look never leaving her face as Luffy gazed up at her, erect and excited. "Like what you see?" Vivi grinned down at her lover, shamelessly ogling at her like a starving man. Her humored words immediately snapped Luffy back to reality. He snapped his head up to look into her eyes and blushed at being caught by her. Vivi giggled again, running her hands through her hair in an erotic pose. "You know I do. Come join me, and I'll show you exactly how much I like it," Luffy said, stroking his stiff, wet cock slowly, invitingly. "Well, if you insist." Vivi smiled provocatively in response. She then began to daintily walk down the steps and into the pool, humming in pleasure as she entered the water, and she felt her body submerge into the cool liquid of the pool. The two lovers met in the middle of the pool. Soft and intimate purple light illuminated them in the darkness as they came together for an impassioned kiss, clasping at one another, pouring out their love and lust in a romantic lip lock. Luffy and Vivi could not keep their hands off of one another. In the time they kissed, they grabbed and fondled one another's bodies with ease, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Luffy squeezed Vivi's breasts and ass and dipped his fingers down to tenderly stroke her, whilst Vivi caressed his cock lovingly and cradled his balls in her hands. As such, the two young lovers standing entwined in the water let out groans and growls of pleasure while they feverishly kissed, only breaking their lips apart to breathe before they resumed their kiss. She grabbed his head, fervently pushing their lips closer together in an impassioned frenzy before she broke their kiss off and held his face in between her hands. Then, as if they shared one mind, they moved in sync and once again kissed. This one was full of their lust. And right now, they kissed each other deeply, tasting the thick saliva off of their lips, their hearts pounding and bodies quivering as they desperately clutched one another. While they kissed, full of raw sexual desire, Vivi, with heat rising from her chest and her legs rubbing together to stimulate her wet cunt, decided she could wait no longer and took things to the next step. As she had done earlier, she reached her silky smooth hands down to wrap them around the thick, meaty girth of his cock, slowly moving up his length as she stroked him. Now, where were we? Vivi breathed with a seductive bite of her lips. Right here, I believe. Luffy grinned back at her. He then dipped his hand to kiss and suck at her neck, eagerly tasting her flesh with his wild tongue up down to firmly grab her supple ass, his digits gripping her cheek as he took sexual rapture in feeling Vivi's stunning body once more. The other hand took a hold of her breast, teasing her soft flesh, gliding over glorious curves. Oh, this is nice, Vivi purred in delight. She let out a little whimper of pleasure when he took her pink nipple between his fingers and squeezed it gently before softly rubbing his fingers around her nipple, all the while ravenously kissing her gilded neck. Not to be outdone, Vivi, with mischief in her mind, leaned her head down and ran her tongue up the inside of Luffy's ear. The wet sensation made Luffy break off from her neck with a gasp. Did you like that? She asked him with innocent wide eyes, with her seductive twinkle ever present behind her virtuous guise. Yes. But I need more. Luffy growled, his eyes wide, his breath bated, chomping at the bit for her. In one swift motion, he reached his arms down under her thick thighs and lifted her up so that her legs were hanging in the hair, held up his muscular arms, and that she was now able to look down to see him. Vivi shrieked in surprised excitement as he did so. Impressed and aroused by her man's strength, she latched her arms around his neck. Eager, aren't we? Vivi giggled, delighting in the ease that he picked her up. What can I say? You're irresistible, Luffy replied huskily, hunger lacing his words. He started wading through the water towards the side, and Vivi held firmly in his arms. When he walked, her dripping would rub up against his hands, smearing them with her juices. And you're insatiable, Vivi remarked, booping his nose with a finger and then rubbing their noses together affectionately. The two shared a grin at the childishness, reveling in how carefree they felt together. Luffy sat Vivi on the pool's edge and spread her legs to stand between them. He stepped forward and suddenly lowered his head to kiss and suck at Vivi's bountiful breasts, fulfilling the desire he had felt the moment he first saw her that evening. He massaged her chest with firm yet gentle hands, leaving Vivi to relax and let her lover pleasure her. About time. Oh, that is good. Ooh, Vivi moaned with a wide smile, clutching Luffy's head closer to her incredible bust. Luffy was worshipping her body, her large bosom, squeezing her huge like a man possessed. He sucked and kissed her erect nipples, teasing the tip with his tongue, before pushing her breasts together and running his tongue up and down her skin. All the while, his hands were grasping, stroking, touching all the parts of her beautiful breasts he could. Oh, yes. Now, lick me, Luffy. Worship my. Vivi gasped out while Luffy was flickering his tongue around one of her nipples while he squeezed the other one with his fingers. She moaned in delight when Luffy pushed her tits together and sucked on both of her pert and sensitive nipples in his mouth at once. He latched his mouth with an obscene wet smack. Patience, Vivi, Luffy commanded her throatily. With a final pair of kisses to her nipples, he began to move down her body. He ran his hands down her sides, kissing and licking her belly as he did so until he had lowered himself so that his head was facing her. Luffy breathed hot breaths into Vivi's wet, while holding her tightly by the waist. He enjoyed feeling her squirm in his arms, knowing how much she desired his tongue on her. Are you going to stay down there all night, or are you going to? Vivi squealed in pleasure, throwing her head back with wide eyes as Luffy suddenly dove forward to start eagerly licking her. His tongue shot out into her cunt, eagerly exploring her wet heat and stimulating all her nerves with his slick touch. Vivi gasped in. "Oh, yes. Luffy, right there, right there." Vivi groaned. She arched her back while Luffy started to eat her. All of a sudden, without warning, Luffy suddenly withdrew his mouth from her, leaving an extremely wet Vivi, letting out small girly whimpers for him to return his mouth to her aching. "Beg me for more," Luffy ordered her in a low, commanding tone. "Please, Luffy. Eat me out. Please eat my captain," Vivi begged desperately in her honeyed voice, quick to comply with her lover's wish, rolling her waist forward and clutching one of her tits. Exactly how Luffy wanted her. Only he could make her beg like this. With a smirk, Luffy was quick to bury his face back between her legs and begin to kiss and lick her cunt, eating her out ravenously. He traced out his name with his tongue kissed her, exploring every inch of her cunt, ensuring that Vivi felt nothing but the greatest of ecstasy. "Ooh, yes, oh fuck, baby, that's amazing. Aw, you're amazing. You're amazing," Vivi wildly moaned, her eyes rolling backward. She fell back onto the floor, hugging her body at the tremendous pleasure, and shrieked without shame. "Eat me out. Suck my juices. Eat me, oh yes, yes." She gripped his hair tightly, grinding her into his face while she cried out at his ministrations, desperate to feel his tongue drive further into. Luffy eagerly obliged, holding her legs up in the air by her thighs so he could get more access to her. Finally, after several minutes of intense cunnilingus, Luffy wrapped his mouth around her soft clit and sucked hard upon it. This was enough to send Vivi over the edge at last. "Aw fuck. Kuaming," Vivi wailed, falling back and ming hard. Her legs quivered, and she flung her hands backward. Her juices came squirting out hard, spilling onto Luffy's eager face. Rather than turning away, he greedily began to lap and drink her juices down and kept his mouth firmly on her cunt. After half a minute, he pulled away from her leaking and began to gently stroke her body lovingly and laid tender, wet kisses on her inside thighs. A sweaty Vivi rose upright to a seated position while taking deep breaths, recovering from a glorious orgasm. She looked down to see Luffy's handsome face soaking wet, baptized in her juices that dripped from his cheekbones. He looked back at her with love and pride on his face, reveling in his ability to grant her the pleasure he knew she deserved. She had dreamed of this moment. She had touched herself at night, imagining that it was Luffy touching her. "Did you enjoy that, Vivi?" Luffy asked her with a cocky grin. "Time to return the favor." "Very much so, Luffy-kun," Vivi remarked. She moved back away from the pool and onto her knees, looking back at her lover with a seductive look as she held up her tits and licked her lips excitedly. "In fact, why don't you come up here and let me repay you?" Vivi purred her face, a mask of lust and sexual craving. "With pleasure," Luffy replied, bounding up the steps of the pool and coming to a stop just ahead of her, transfixed by her sexual image. His massive cock stood erect and eager for her, straight and hard just ahead of her. He had made her come undone and fall apart with his mouth. Now, she would do the same. "My turn," Vivi drawled. She took Luffy's cock in her hands, barely encircling the girth of his huge member, gripping her base, and licked from his balls up to his tip in one slow motion. "Phewick," Luffy groaned immediately at the sensation, much to Vivi's amusement. Vivi then began to place licks and kisses around Luffy's cock, all over his member. She placed numerous kisses all over his tip, then swirled her tongue back and forth around his head, then moved down to take one of Luffy's big balls into her mouth and slobber all over them. She made sure to cover every single inch of Luffy's thick and mighty cock with her saliva, even spitting on her hand before rubbing it up and down the length so that it was slick and wet. All the while, Luffy was grunting and gasping in pleasure, closing his eyes and running his hands through Vivi's hair as she pleasured his cock. "Now for the main course," Vivi said greedily. Vivi took Luffy's cock deep into her mouth, beginning to suck on his cock. She bobbed forth, taking the thick cock into her warm mouth repeatedly, all while rubbing the base of his cock with her hands. She kept her eyes locked onto Luffy and her mouth and throat full of Luffy's cock, watching him sweat and squirm. "Fuck, Vivi. Yes, right there. Oh, gods, you're incredible. Keep doing that. Ugh." Luffy moaned loudly at her blowjob, squeezing his hands. When she pulled off to breathe for air, thick globs of saliva draped off of his bulbous and into her mouth and fell on the floor, or her breasts, coating them with wet spit. Obscene sounds filled as Vivi eagerly gagged on Luffy's cock. Gak. Gluck. Gag. She squeezed his swollen balls and drove her back and forth with Luffy's held firmly in her sinful mouth, making sure to suck, lick and kiss all over his thick member. "Let's try something else, shall we?" Vivi suggested. Luffy nodded eagerly at her suggestion. Vivi took her large breasts and wrapped them around his cock. Despite the incredible size of her bust, the head of his cock still poked out through her cleavage. Vivi then began to caress her breasts up and down her cock, massaging his big, stiff with her soft fleshy tits. Luffy moaned out in pleasure. His knees almost buckled at the feeling. "Come on, my captain," Vivi pleaded, her eyes hooded with aching desire. "You know what you want to do, fuck my tits." "Gods, yes." Luffy cried out with breathless exhilaration. He started immediately to thrust his cock up through Vivi's cleavage, savoring the smooth warmth as her doughy, full breasts smothered gingerly around his length. She still could not take all of his cock, but that only left her hungry for more. She wrapped her soft lips around the thick head of his cock to suck on it as well while squeezing her tits against his cock. All of Luffy's cock was enveloped in pleasure as Vivi teased him to the very edge with her breasts and mouth, leaving his cock slick and hard as iron and Luffy a growling mess. "Time to give me my load," Vivi replied as she popped her mouth off his cock. Vivi took her tits away from his cock and, with a quick wink, suddenly deep-throated all of Luffy's cock in one swift movement. She grabbed his ass to ensure she got all of his impressive cock inside of her mouth. All the inches of his magnificent members were taken down Vivi's throat, leaving her nose driven all the way into his groin in a feat of sexual mastery. "Ooh fuck," Luffy yelled out in ecstasy, flinging his head back as Vivi took all of his cock in her mouth with ease, every single inch. Her mouth was like a vortex of pleasure. He grabbed a fistful of her hair, trying to hold out for as long as possible before his fast-approaching release. Eventually, he shuddered and groaned, and could hold back no longer. "I'm Ming," he bellowed loudly, bucked his pelvis forward, and began to spill his seed into Vivi's throat. His cock erupted, sending thick spurts of for an eager Vivi to drink up. She enthusiastically accepted his huge load, gulping down his salty seed for around 30 seconds, all without letting his cock out of her mouth until he finally ceased with a breathless groan. Vivi moved her head back until she was gently sucking on his tip, ensuring she had milked his load, before finally releasing his cock with a wet sound. She hummed in pleasure, her cheeks bulging with his, then, in one motion, swallowed the whole of his load down her mouth with a loud gulp, leaving Luffy gobsmacked and hornier than ever. "Delicious." Vivi giggled with glee, smacking her full lips with delight in an erotic manner. She looked to see that Luffy's cock remained stiff and hard, with full balls containing another load of for another hole. And she, too, was ready for another wondrous load. "I think we both know what's next," Vivi said in her soft but seductive tone, batting her brown eyes. Vivi didn't know where this side of her came from, but it seemed her captain was enjoying it, and so was she. She fell back slowly to lie on her back. She spread her legs wide open, feeling her juices flow down her, aching for Luffy to come down and fuck her brains out. "I will go slow," Luffy said, knowing the first time could be painful and uncomfortable. Vivi bit her lip, whimpering with eagerness as her loving Luffy sank closer to her. Luffy kissed Vivi passionately while he aligned his cock with her cunt. Vivi matched each thrust of his tongue and suck of his lips, clutching his body and wrapping her legs around his back to bring him into her. "You ready?" Luffy asked. His slick cock stood rigid just inches away from her moist, dripping, eager to enter her warm cunt at long last. "Do it. I need you inside of me, Luffy. I need you to fuck me right now." Vivi smiled at her lover, a romantic and desperate expression on her face, and both lust and love matched by the man on top of her. That was all that was needed to spur her man into action. In one thrust, Luffy drove his hips forward and sent his cock forward to penetrate her deep and hungry in one fluid motion. Vivi's wet, yearning cunt immediately clamped down upon the stiff cock, massaging each of his bulging veins. Vivi let out a loud moan of both pleasure and pain. Luffy was worried he had hurt her, but she quickly shook her head, letting him know she was fine. After a short pause, the princess got comfortable. "Fuck me, my captain," she ordered. From that moment of penetration, the two lovers lost all sense of the world around them. A rush of pure ecstasy, a magical sensory overload, washed through the two young lovers. All they felt was one another and the indescribable waves of sexual bliss. A heavenly feeling unmatched by anything else in their worlds. "Ah! Fuick!" Vivi screamed out at the dizzying pleasure. Her eyes shot wide open, and her hands reached up to grip at Luffy's body, raking her nails on his skin. Wasting no time, Luffy took hold of her hips and began to drive his throbbing cock in and out of Vivi's famished. His big, musky balls slapped against her ass, and Luffy began to fuck Vivi like an animal in heat, bottoming out into her sopping and leaking cunt like there was no tomorrow, with squelching sounds echoing around the pool. "Oh, yes, Luffy, by the gods. Fuck me harder. Give me your big cock," Vivi shrieked like a banshee, as shameless as a wanton whore. Writhing on the floor as Luffy pounded deep into her like a god. Vivi's tits were squashed into his chest as they made love passionately. Luffy thrusted forward with hard movements, again and again, filling Vivi's juicy with his thick cock meat. His lust-filled, obscene grunts and moans and her high-pitched screams and squeals of desire filled the air along with the slaps of their sweaty flesh that writhed together. The two were addicted to one another and the rapturous bliss that they felt when they were together. A cacophony of lust echoed around them as the minutes went by, neither stopping nor slowing down even a split second. "Yes, yes, 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 you're fucking perfect," Vivi howled in triumph as she began to feel her climax approach gradually. He crashed his lips down onto Vivi's for a messy spit exchange. "Ing," she moaned in pure bliss, feeling incredible pleasure. Feeling Luffy's filling her, so much that his seed started dripping from her. Luffy grabbed the woman into his arms, leading her to their bedroom. Laying beside her, Vivi was resting her head against his chest, his arms around her shoulders, keeping her close. Vivi smiled, loving the feeling of having him close to her, but it seemed they weren't done yet. The door opened, revealing a smirking duo. Nami and Nejiko quickly closed the door before locking it. With one move, they were naked and joined the princess and their captain. As Smoker's small boat approached the ship, he noticed several new marine ships alongside his own vessel. With a deep grunt, he couldn't help but feel annoyed at the sight of the reinforcements. He had thought Asuka's assistance was enough to handle any potential threats, but it appeared that the Marines or the world government felt otherwise. Smoker didn't know if they thought he was incompetent or outnumbered or both, but he didn't like this. They were currently in a small boat heading to their main ship. Usually, they would deck somewhere, but Smoker had ordered his men to leave. Crocodile and his group of children were dead, and the Straw Hat had somehow disappeared from Alabasta. That has been Smoker's report to Sengoku, but looking at this new ship brought red flags. Something was definitely off. As they sailed towards the ship with the small boat, Tashigi couldn't help but wonder about the vessel that was beside Captain Smoker's ship. The young officer turned to her superior, the tall and imposing figure of Captain Smoker, and with a curious glint in her eyes, asked, "Captain Smoker, whose ship is that?" Her finger pointed at the towering mast and billowing sails of the main ship that loomed over them. "I don't know, and they're already annoying me," Smoker replied with a grunt. Tashigi's voice was laced with concern as she scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of Asuka's ship. "Where's Asuka's ship?" she asked, turning to her captain with a furrowed brow. The vessel was easy to spot, with its distinctive design of bold red hues and curious adornments that set it apart from the rest. But as Tashigi looked around, her heart sank as she realized the ship was nowhere in sight. "I don't know, but whoever is inside my ship will answer," Smoker replied. Soon, silence fell over them until Smoker heard a sobbing. As Tashigi stood behind her superior, Captain Smoker, she suddenly let out a deep sigh, and with a downcast look, she uttered the words that she feared the most, "Captain, I failed you." Her eyes, welling up with tears, conveyed the depth of her emotions as she struggled to keep her composure. Smoker, who kept looking at the ship they were sailing to, "Why would you say that?" His voice was calm. The words came out of her mouth in a defeated whisper, her eyes downcast with shame and disappointment. "I couldn't help," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. Zoro defeated me, and I didn't have the strength or courage to rise up and fight back against the crocodile. I did nothing to stop the madness, and now I feel like a liability." She took a deep breath, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill down her cheeks. With a skeptical look on his face and a tone that could cut through steel, Smoker responded to his subordinate's tears with a question that dripped with sarcasm and disbelief. "Is that so?" he asked, his voice laced with incredulity. "Do you honestly believe that crying will magically make things better?" Not even glancing in the direction of his subordinate, as if to show that he was not about to be swayed by emotion or sentimentality. Tashiji's voice trembled as she tried to answer, struggling to find the words to express the overwhelming emotions that had taken hold of her. Her eyes were blurred with tears, and she hastily wiped them away with the sleeve of her uniform, feeling embarrassed by her display of vulnerability. Despite her efforts to compose herself, her voice still shook as she managed to stutter out the beginning of her sentence, I. The weight of the situation seemed to press down on her, making it difficult to articulate the thoughts and feelings that were swirling inside. "If crying is all you can do, then go ahead, cry me a river, but if you want things to change, then stand up and try to get better. Trust me, crying changes nothing. You will only sink more into a pit of sorrow and self-hatred. Think about your problems, don't think about all of them. Choose one and fix that, then choose another, and then another. It might take a while, but one day you will be looking at your past with a bright smile instead of more tears," Smoker said when he suddenly felt arms around his shoulder from behind, her head resting on his back. "Thank you, Captain," she said, her voice muffled by his coat. Captain wondered how he got himself into this situation. "Damn me, why am I always so stupid?" Smoker thought, a part of him feeling better for his subordinate. The salty sea breeze was blowing fiercely as he made his way toward his ship. Once he stepped on board, he couldn't wait to retreat to his chambers. However, as soon as he entered the room, he was taken aback to find someone he had not seen for quite some time. She was sitting on his couch, inhaling his cigarettes, and her eyes were fixated on his figure. As he stood there in shock, he couldn't help but ask, "What are you doing here, Hina?" Hina is a tall, slim woman with dark brown eyes and straight, waist-length pink hair worn in a middle part, a cigarette in her mouth. Her outfit consists of a purple shirt with a deep neckline and golden motifs on the front, matching long pants, and high-heeled shoes. She also sports a bead necklace around her neck and a pair of purple sunglasses either covering her eyes or on her forehead. As with most Marines, Hina accompanies her outfit with a long white marine jacket draped over her shoulders like a cape. The only difference is that she retains her signature color on the epaulettes, which is light blue, while Marines officers normally have red and blue epaulettes. Hina took a long drag from her cigarette. She looked up at Smoker-kun with a warm smile. "Long time no see." Holding the cigarette delicately between her thumb and index finger, Hina exhaled a thick cloud of smoke into the air, the tendrils of which seemed to dance and writhe in the breeze. Smoker did not react to her way of calling him. Instead, he addressed a still saluting Tashigi. "Outside, soldier," he ordered, not looking at her. The girl raised an eyebrow, her eyes shifting between her captain and the woman, soon deciding to leave the chamber. The sound of the door closing echoed in the small room as Smoker's eyes locked onto Hina's. He didn't waste any time with small talk, knowing that their history was complicated enough without adding any more layers. As he settled himself into a worn leather chair, he cut straight to the chase, his voice sharp and direct. It was clear that Smoker wasn't interested in playing any games, especially with Hina. "Why are you here?" he asked pointedly, his gaze never leaving her. "I doubt you came all this way just to say hello." Hina exhaled a puff of smoke from her ruby-red lips, the tendrils of smoke dissipating into the air around her. With a coy smile, she looked up to see her favorite Marine captain and couldn't resist the urge to tease him a little. "Can't I say hi to my old classmate?" she questioned, her voice laced with playful flirtation as she took a step closer to him, her eyes sparkling mischievously. Smoker had a deadpan look on his face. Her smile had men fall head over heels for her, but Smoker's only reaction was his eye twitching a little. Sighing, she decided to stop playing games. She could perhaps play later. "I will cut to the case. I'm here to bring down Crocodile," she said, her voice changing to serious right away. A snort escaped from him, followed by a smirk that crept onto his face as he responded, Unless you want to fight his corpse, there's nothing else to fight. He replied, his lips moving upwards as he said that. Hearing that the warlord was dead had been the only good news since he left Logia Town. Hearing that Luffy defeated the fucker had made it even easier to simply close his eyes and pretend the pirate captain wasn't in Alabasta anymore. Smoker remembered Garp's words about his grandson, how despite being a pirate, he had a good head for justice. Smoker couldn't help but slightly agree, a part of him wondering if the Straw Hat captain had become a Marine. Would they have been friends? The Marine quickly dropped you, it wasn't important. What happened? Hina asked right away, her face as blank as a stone. As the storm outside intensified, Smoker urgently relayed to her the events that had unfolded in Alabasta, his voice rising and falling with tension and excitement. As he spoke, the rain drummed against the window panes, a steady rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeats of those who had risked everything fighting for their home. With each passing moment, the storm grew stronger, the wind howling and the sea churning with fury. I see, so you didn't use that dance powder thing? Hina asked with her arms crossed, sitting on a comfortable couch across from Smoker, who had also chosen a sofa. Why the fuck would I do that? I didn't become a Marine officer so I could end up with a long sharp stick up my neck. Smoker replied, slightly insulted, inhaling his cigarettes. After a short pause, Smoker decided to get to the point of this meeting. Now, why the fuck are you here? And why bring so many ships here? What are you looking for? Smoker questioned, spreading his arms across the couch's back with an uncaring look. As carefree as ever, you haven't changed one bit since our days in Marine school. I expected growing up would make you more mature. Hina is disappointed, Hina said with a shake of her head as if talking to a child, not a fully grown man. As the smoke from his cigar filled the room, Smoker leaned forward from the comfort of his couch, his eyes intently measuring Hina, who stood before him. With a tone of authority, he demanded to know, who cares? Now, I have a feeling you didn't sail all the way here to capture a dead man. What brings you here? A bright smile formed on her face, and she reached into the depths of her navy blue coat, pulling out a crumpled stack of papers. Smoker could tell from a single glance that they were none other than the infamous wanted posters. These are new bounties of the Straw Hat Pirates, Hina informed him. She then proceeded to spread the papers on a large round table near him, each one bearing the image and information of a member of the said pirate crew, their bounties as new as the day's dawn. As Smoker's eyes flicked over the sheets, his expression shifted from one of mild interest to one of shock and disbelief. His eyes widened, his jaw dropping slightly as he took in the staggering numbers on the bounties. What the fuck? Why is his bounty 5 times bigger than the first? Smoker demanded, looking up at Hina, who exhaled a puff of smoke. Hina doesn't know why. Do you really think they told me? I'm a simple Marine captain, not an admiral, Hina explained, slightly annoyed by the fact that she herself was stating. Smoker leaned back on his comfortable couch, his arms crossed and his gaze piercing as he made his declaration with a convincing tone. Well, the Straw Hat Pirates are no longer in Alabasta. The words hung heavily in the air, pregnant with meaning, as he watched Hina's reaction with a sense of satisfaction. I'm afraid you're wrong, Smoker-kun. We have found their ship. I doubt they escaped using another ship. And they definitely can't fly or walk on water, Hina explained, moving a strand of her hair from her face. She had already prepared a plan to capture the pirates. Smoker had no visible reaction to her words. If he was surprised or angry, he did a good job hiding it. Smoker was about to ask her about the other ships when his transponder snail decided to annoy him and started ringing. Biru 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 biru, grabbing the damn thing, he answered with a rough voice. You already ruined my day. Who is this? This is Marine headquarters. Is this Captain Smoker? The voice on the other side asked. Smoker didn't recognize him. One and only. What is it? He didn't bother to hide his annoyance as he impatiently tapped his foot on the ground. Hina, who was standing next to him, shook her head at his antics. She had seen this behavior from him before and knew that he could be quite prickly at times. Despite the fact that he was talking with people of much higher status than him, Smoker wasn't showing them the respect that they deserved. We have heard of your disposal of Crocodile, the warlord. You have our gratitude. We will reward? The fuck you're talking about? He demanded, his voice rising with anger. His grip around the speaker tightened, making Hina, who was standing nearby, concerned that he might break it. I wasn't the one who defeated him, he continued, his tone becoming increasingly frustrated. Didn't you read my report? Smoker's mind raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. We have also prepared a ceremony for your arrival. Both you and Tashigi will be rewarded, each a higher rank for, you motherfucker, are you deaf? I wasn't the one who defeated Crocodile. It was the Straw Hat Pirates. The credit should go only to them, Smoker interrupted. His grip around the damn speaker tightened, threatening to break it, as he seethed with rage. His teeth were clenched so tightly that he could feel his jaw aching. He noticed they didn't mention Asuka getting a higher rank, but he ignored that for now. Is pointless, Smoker, just drop it. It is clear that the world government will cover this whole mess up. Just take the credit. Hina interrupted his trail of thoughts. He glared at her from the corner of his eyes. Do you really think the world government will accept that a pirate did the job instead of them? What do you think people around the world will think about this? We already have problems with the Revolutionary Army. We don't need to add fuel to that fire, Hina continued, ignoring Smoker's glare toward her. The ceremony for your decorations will start once you. We didn't defeat him. My subordinates is crying right now because we weren't able to. You fuckers, Smoker interrupted, and his grip around the speaker tightened even more. At this point, he knew he was going to break the damn thing, but he didn't care. Just drop it, Smoker, don't be a fool. Do you have any idea what consequences you will have if you disobey orders? Hina, at this point, was shouting right in his face. Smoker simply ignored her. Instead, he put the speaker close to his mouth. Pass this message to the higher-ups. He spoke calmly. What? Tell them to go fuck themselves.